Feeling comfortable using 100% freshly milled wheat, or maybe you're bored with like the more simple recipes that I've been sharing with y'all? Well, in this video, welcome to Home Milling 201 video marathon, where I'm going to be sharing with y'all 11 recipes that are taking your freshly milled bread to the next level. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel I teach you all about real whole grains, all from a biblical perspective, teaching you how and why to be milling your own grains and more. So this video is what I like to call a marathon video. I have reached through the archives of my YouTube channel and basically combined 11 recipes that I would consider more kind of home milling 201 type recipes. So for those of you who aren't new to milling your own grains, but maybe you've gotten a few recipes under your belt and wanting the next step, like what's the next step beyond like the simple yeast bread loaf recipe, maybe muffins, pancakes, easier recipes, well, this video has you covered. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing with y'all 11 video recipes that I've done throughout the years on this YouTube channel, because I do think that they're kind of just excellent next level style recipes. So while the newbies probably can do these, some of these I don't recommend for like the newbies, especially if you have never baked bread before in your life, because it may be a little overwhelming. So stick with the simple recipes first, like my simple yeast bread loaf recipe, so on and so forth. And good news is that these recipes are not just wheat, but I've got two in here that are using corn as well. So we're expanding our grain horizon. Another thing with these recipes is some of these are what I like to call my labor of loves, where they're just going to take some time, but yet they are so worth it. So these are also great for if you've just got a little bit more time in the kitchen that you want to spend making really great breads. So this video, we will be covering pasta, nixtamalizing your own corn to make your own corn tortillas. We are talking scratch from scratch type cooking. The only thing missing is you growing the corn yourself. And freshly milled flour tortillas, stone grind grits, and there's some bonus recipes in here as well with the shrimping grits, but ultimately how to actually make your own grits at home. And then of course a wonderful pie crust, which you certainly need, ciabatta bread, brioche, baguettes / French bread, works for either one, English muffins, which is perfect for freezer breads if you would like that, Focaccia bread, and then the mother of all croissants, like right up there with pasta, kind of the ultimate labor of love. Now, many of these recipes I actually have in my cookbook, if I can get the glare out of it, my cookbook, and all the things will be linked down below, including the link to the original videos. So if I mention things in the original videos and I don't have it linked below, click the link to the original video and I probably have it linked there. All right, so a little note to the newbies. If you are new here, or kind of new, or maybe you don't feel like you have a very firm grasp on milling grains and you want something a bit easier, or maybe you need me to actually walk you through it, I do actually recommend checking out my course that I just came out the last few months. This is the ultimate training guide of how to be milling your grains, why to be milling your grains, and I really walk you through the recipes that I recommend, especially as newbies starting off, but also tell you, like, you know, walk you through how to choose a grain mill and what about mixers and bread machines and tools in the kitchen and all the things. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. That's up here, and of course link on the screen and link down below as well. Also, timestamps will be below, so if you're looking for a specific recipe, you can easily find it. So let's get started. Is it possible to make pasta from 100% freshly milled wheat that actually is delicious, but also doesn't look funky and maybe even a little bit like store-bought pasta? Yes, it is, but there is a secret to it, and you're going to want to stay tuned to find out what it is. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, I teach you all about real whole grains, all from a biblical perspective. I teach you how to be milling grains, why you should be milling grains, why you should be consuming whole grains, how to use them, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is a much requested video, and that is pasta with 100% freshly milled wheat. And I have to say, I've experimented with this quite a lot, and the pasta for me always just, it just didn't turn out right. Certain wheats just made them look almost like kind of grayish looking. It didn't look appealing, even though it may taste okay. It just didn't look great. And you know, we kind of have this expectation of what pasta should look like. So I definitely set out to figure out how we can do this. And the secret is the type of wheat that you use. Yes, my friends, it all comes down to the wheat. And the wheat that I found that works the best with pasta is Khorasan. You may actually know it as Kamut. And so that is the grain that we will be using. If you don't have some for pasta, you definitely need it. And the reason why I like Khorasan is it gives you a nice soft dough. It works well, but also something with Khorasan just gives you an almost store-bought pasta look. It just looks like normal pasta. And so your kids aren't going to reject it because it looks like what they've already been given. But on top of that, it is absolutely delicious. It is such a flavorful pasta. And you may be wondering why Khorasan and not say wheat durum, but fun fact, Khorasan is actually related to wheat durum. So it totally works out fine. Khorasan is actually one of my favorite ancient grains to work with, so much so that I actually did a course all about Khorasan. I dive deep and give you some of my best tips and tricks and recipes using Khorasan. So if you haven't checked out that course yet, it will be in the description box below. And if I'm able to, I will link it up here as well. So without further ado, let's get this started. All right, so step one is you're gonna wanna make a whole lot of room. And actually, I really like this bag, by the way. It's a Teddy Blake bag, real Italian leather. They sent this to me, and frankly, I really like it. Link will be down below. But bottom line is you're gonna need a ton of room for pasta. And then of course, we need our grain mill. This is the Como grain mill, aka Miss Katerina. And I'm using my Bosch Universal Mixer Plus, aka Miss Betsy, to help me mix up and knead the dough. And then you're definitely gonna wanna need an apron, and all of these will be listed below. And then of course, beloved Khorasan. And then we're gonna mill some up. Now, for those of you who are always on me about, oh, Felicia, I wish you weighed your grains, you will be happy to know that we will be weighing them. Now, I didn't weigh it before I milled, and this is why. Basically, the recipe for pasta is stupid easy. For every 100 grams of flour, you need 1 egg. That's it. That's just the basic recipe. So I'm actually going to be doing 300 grams of flour. So I'm going to need 3 eggs. So what you see here is I'm actually measuring out the 300 grams of flour, but you're also going to want to need some extra for dusting the pasta and things like that, which you will see later. So if you're just going to weigh the wheat berries, make sure you do a little bit extra for milling because you're going to need some extra flour. But as far as the actual dough, I'm weighing out here 300 grams of freshly milled Khorasan, and then we're just going to dump that in our mixer. You can do this by hand, but this part I find it's just easier to do in a mixer. And then we're just going to add in the 3 eggs. Again, 300 grams of flour is what you see here, to 3 eggs. These are just regular large eggs. And if you've actually watched pasta videos online before, and especially if you see like the Italian grandmas, you'll notice that their pasta is yellow. That's usually from the eggs, and they're using like a whiter flour. You're going to have more of a buttery look with this pasta because of the Khorasan. It's just the color of the Khorasan, which is just beautiful. You may have noticed you're also going to need some water. And as this dough is mixing, whether you're doing this by hand or in the mixer, you're going to want to add in start with 1 tablespoon of water at a time. Basically, you're just needing to add enough water until the dough just starts to be able to clump together. So for here, I just only needed like 2 tablespoons. And as you can see here, I'm able to just clump it together. It's still very grainy. It still feels dry. And I rather go a little less on the water at this point than too much. So that's enough for me right now. And now I'm just going to knead the dough in the mixer. I'm going to knead it for about 9 minutes, but I am going to finish it up by hand because I just prefer to do it that way. But in the mixer right here, let's just do 9 minutes. If you're kneading by hand, just keep kneading by hand, and you're going to want to get some tips in a bit whenever I start kneading it by hand myself. Okay, so the 9 minutes are up, and as you can see, this still does not look like a really nice smooth dough, but it is coming together. And from here, I now like to take it over and start kneading it and working with it by hand because I want to feel the dough. I want to actually feel how it is, and I just find that you just got to do that part by hand. But at least we got like the hardest part out of the way. So I can already tell that we still have flour bits around, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more water, and then we're going to remove this from the bowl. Now keep that water by hand. So as you can see here, this dough still ain't looking great. It's still a little bit in pieces, still a bit dry. So I'm just going to knead this dough, keep working this dough, and you can see how it's even sticking onto the counter. I am not adding more flour. At this point, don't add more flour. Just slightly, just wet your hands. I like to dip my hands and fingers into the water that I have here. Um, and then use that to continue kneading this. And you're going to knead this until it's a nice smooth ball, and it actually is going to start looking a bit shiny, which unfortunately it's very difficult to show, at least on my camera. But the key is here, as you can see, it's still sticking to the counter a bit. So I'm just going to keep kneading. As I knead, we're working and developing the gluten. And as I knead, it's going to also start picking up that dough more. So again, I'm not adding any flour. I just keep watering my hands like you see here. And then we're working water into the dough, and that's going to help the dough to become less sticky. I know that might seem like it won't, but it will make it less sticky. It's going to pick up that flour the dough from the counter. And we're just going to keep doing this. This did take me probably an additional 3 to 4 minutes, depends on how rigorous you are at kneading. And then you just keep wetting those hands, keep kneading it until it's just nice and smooth dough. And here it is. This is a few minutes later. You can see how I can stick my finger in it. It's able to make a bit of a indentation, as you will. But I still kind of want to work it. It's still just not quite feeling as soft and smooth as I'm wanting. So you still want a bit of a slightly tacky dough, but the bottom line is you're really looking for the smoothness of the dough and a little bit of shininess to it. And again, if it's not shiny, you just need some more water and keep working that in until it's good. So again, you don't want it to look dry, but it's also not a really, it's not falling apart or anything. This will feel more dense of a dough than a typical bread dough. So if you've made like my simple yeast bread loaf recipe, this is not going to be as soft of a dough as that is. It will be a little bit more dense, but still maintain a softness. So we are done here. As you can see, it's got that little bit of a shininess to it. I can poke it and it's not sticking like crazy to my hand, but it is slightly tacky. So again, to show you again what I'm looking for is you can see it still wants to stick a little bit to the counter, but not like insane. And if it's just too insane, again, water, keep kneading it. That's why I keep seeing me do that here a little bit. But again, it's going to be slightly tacky. It's just going to take practice. But here's an important part is you now need to let the dough rest. Now, good news, this is something you can do in advance. So you can do this even like a couple days beforehand and just keep it in your fridge. And then you can use it straight from the fridge when you're ready to roll it out. But you need to let it rest for at least 20 minutes if you're going to go ahead and do this. And that can be resting in the fridge or outside of the fridge. It really doesn't matter. Now, surprise! I actually have an Khorasan mixer, the Ankh that I can never pronounce. I haven't done a video about this. You haven't missed it. But bottom line is I also have the pasta attachments to these. Now, I just have the roller attachment and then the fettuccine attachment. And I will do a video about this mixer later. You'll just have to wait. But bottom line is I'm using it now for the pasta attachments. So sorry, I'm totally leaving y'all hanging for those who've watched this for a long time. But bottom line is this is where you need to set up however you are rolling this pasta out, whether it be by hand with a manual roller, but I have these attachments. You just want to make sure that it's on here securely. And so now we're just going to remove the dough from our plastic wrap. And this is the part that really just takes the longest, rolling out the dough. Just park it here, y'all. It's going to take some time. But we're going to go ahead and just divide up the dough into more manageable pieces. This is basically, I work with it in thirds to start off with. And you're going to want to keep this flour nearby. So as you can see here, after all this resting, it should be softer of a dough. It feels amazing. It feels like a soft Play-Doh, like brand new Play-Doh. That's what we're going for. And I'm going to go ahead and flour it here. You do just want to keep flouring this a lot, because otherwise it's going to really stick and it's not going to roll out well. And it's going to be a big, like, doughy mess, which you don't want. So you're going to start on your thickest setting. For me, that's a 0 with these pasta rollers. And we're just going to start rolling it through. I have to admit, having these attachments to a mixer is so much easier than having a manual roller, because with a manual roller, I feel like I need like 3 hands, and here I can do it with 2. So after that first roll, you can see here, I just folded it up in thirds. We're just dusting it again. Each time you send it through the roller, you want to dust that again to make sure nothing is sticking. And on this setting, I like to roll it through maybe 2 to 4 times. It kind of just all depends, but so long as it's looking good, you just gradually move it up to the next level. So I go from 0 to 1, and you gradually work on making this pasta thinner. So I don't always keep folding it up in thirds like this. I just do this to start off with, but you just keep sending it through each time. Again, as it goes to the smaller, thinner settings, I start only running it through maybe 1 to maybe 3 times at the most. Bottom line is, as you do this, you're going to know what good pasta looks like. You're just wanting the dough to still be smooth. You don't want it to be sticking together, and you don't want it to be falling apart, which we'll get to troubleshooting methods in a bit. But here we go. As it starts getting longer, I just cut it in half. Work with smaller sections. Just think about the size of like the noodles that you are wanting, or the size of the sheet of dough that you are wanting. It just really all depends. But for me, it's just easier to work in these sizes that's no more than about 12 inches long. But we're just going to keep rolling through here, y'all, and we'll get to troubleshooting tips in a bit. Okay, so I was able to get it to about the 6 or the 7 setting, but you know when the pasta is rolled enough where basically it's just a little bit see-through. You can kind of see your hands through that. And whenever it is done and it's rolled out as thin as it needs to be, you just need to set it aside and work with the rest of the dough. So we're going to pause real quick to talk about Khorasan and the wheat that I'm using. The Khorasan I'm using is actually from Grand Teton Ancient Grains, which is my go-to place now for ancient grains. They are the responsible for bringing these beloved ancient grains here, specifically einkorn, for making einkorn more available here in the United States. They started doing this a while ago. I actually did an interview with Jade. If you haven't watched that yet, it is absolutely fascinating. But Grand Teton Ancient Grains is the sponsor of this video. And what is so great about Grand Teton is that they are organic farmers. They are lovers of ancient grains, but they are regenerative farmers, which means that they're really, really taking care of their soil to make sure that your grains are the most nutrient dense as possible. But on top of that, they also test their grains for lead, for glyphosate, all of those bad things that you just don't want in your food, making sure that you have safe and clean and nutritious ancient grains. They're also a mill, so for those of you who may not have a grain mill yet, you can get freshly milled flour from them, which is wonderful. Another thing that they have recently come out with is pasta. Now their pasta actually is from einkorn, but it's 100% freshly milled einkorn that they make pasta. I've actually tried it. It is delicious. Just little note is their spaghetti with, I think being made with the einkorn, the spaghetti noodles did kind of fall apart whenever I cooked them, but it really didn't matter because especially kids are eating them anyway. So it kind of helped that it was in smaller pieces, but other than that, I do recommend the pasta, especially if you're unable to make it or you just need some on hand for those times that you just don't have time to make pasta. And I was really excited whenever they started giving us this option for buying pasta from an ancient grain that's freshly milled. So if you haven't checked out Grand Teton, you really are missing out. You just need to go to grainsandgrit.com/Teton. Tell them I sent you, and thank you so much to Grand Teton Ancient Grains for sponsoring this video. Okay, so we're going to keep rolling this out on 6 times the speed because again, this takes a while, but let's talk about some troubleshooting tips. So your biggest thing here, as you're rolling the dough out, if you start basically seeing where things are just falling apart, you can't get it thin enough, it keeps falling apart. There are a few things you need to consider here. One, first of all, just make sure that you're accurate, you are dusting each side of the pasta sheet before you roll it through because it may be falling apart just because it's getting stuck in your roller. And you'll kind of know that because it's going to act like it's being stuck in your roller. And that's going to cause it to tear and fall apart. Another thing is that it may not have just been kneaded or rested sufficiently before you did this. So you just, again, want to make sure that you have a nice smooth, that dough is feeling smooth like a Play-Doh type dough before you start to roll it out. But I think the biggest issue is just making sure that you're flouring it enough before you start rolling it through to make sure it's not tearing. And then again, that resting time after you've kneaded is very crucial. So that's just the biggest thing I think with pasta is the falling apart or it's getting stuck in the roller. There's some tips for you. All right, so we did it. We got it all rolled out, and now we're gonna switch attachments. Now this is the fettuccine roller that I have. There's also like a spaghetti roller, but I kind of wanted the fettuccine. I figured it was cool. So again, just make sure that this is screwed in correctly. Again, if you just want to do like lasagna, you already have your sheets, or ravioli, you got your sheets, you're ready to go. But I find this is a tip that I got from Becky on Acre Homestead, who is making pasta. And she said that it actually works better when you're sending it through the cutter like this after it is dried for a little bit. And I have to agree. So that first sheet that I did, it's been about like a good 20-30 minutes since I first did it, and it did dry a little bit and made it a little bit stiffer. So I still dust it with some flour, and I found that it cut really easily. So I do suggest that if you're doing less than this and maybe those sheets didn't have as long of a time to sit there and dry, let it dry for maybe like 15-20 minutes just to help it cut easier. And you can cut by hand if you need to, but again, technology, it's wonderful, y'all. It really makes the job a whole lot easier. So again, you also want to make sure that you're dusting the flour before sending it through again, because that keeps the noodles dusted and keep them from sticking together in a big ball of dough and thus wasting all the time that you just did. So that's the biggest key whenever you are cutting the noodles, is to make sure everything is staying floured sufficiently to keep things from sticking together. One thing I forgot to mention is while you're cutting the noodles, do be sure you're already getting some water to boil. You're going to want a large pot. Don't fill it up more than halfway with water, whatever pot you're using. And you want to get it, just salt the water, just a good amount of salt in the water, and get that coming to a boil, because cutting the noodles is way faster than me rolling out all this dough. And so you want to go ahead and have nice hot water to go so you're not wasting time in the kitchen. But here we are with our noodles. They look absolutely beautiful, and we're going to add these into our pot of salted boiling water. Now the beauty of fresh pasta is it takes way less time to cook, about half the time than dried pasta. So this usually took only about like 4 minutes for all of this to cook. Again, make sure that the water is already at a sufficient rolling boil, and you're just going to dump all this pasta in, again making sure it's really floured well, because otherwise you don't want it to stick and clump together as a big dough ball in the pot of water. So I just like to stir it up like I do with pasta to make sure nothing is sticking, and it was doing absolutely just fine. And the way that I find that fresh pasta, if it's done, besides the time, is usually about anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes for me, but I just taste it. I just taste it to see how it is, and you'll know by the texture and the taste. I mean, I think we've all had pasta. We all know what it should taste and feel like in the mouth, but that's what you're looking for, is I just taste it to see how it is. And of course, when it's done cooking, you're going to want to drain it, but here it is. Ta-da! And time to plate it, y'all. So these are homemade meatballs that I have, homemade marinara sauce because it's the best. And now we're going to plate it. So this is whole grain pasta, y'all. You may find that you don't need as much pasta in order to be full, but we got the pasta. We're adding on some meatballs. These are wonderful meatballs. And of course, the marinara sauce. And then, you know, what is Italian cooking without freshly grated Parmesan right on top? Yes, y'all, it is a necessity. Ask any Italian. So we're just dusting, we're just grating some freshly grated Parmesan on top. And there it is. It is beautiful. Y'all, you probably wouldn't know that that's whole grain pasta right there. I mean, look at it. Look at it. We're going to get even a closer look up to it because it's just so pretty and we have to admire it. But it's that beautiful buttery look, and it's not a grainy type texture. So here's kind of more of a close up to it. I've done pasta where it just looks grainy and gray and just sad. Sad. This is not sad pasta, y'all. This is happy pasta, and it is delicious, and there it is. All right, that's it, y'all. I have no pasta here to show you because my family absolutely inhaled it. Now, do know if you're looking for the meatball recipe and the marinara sauce, that is actually for my grannies. So all of my granny grainies out there in the grainy bunch, be sure to check those out. Those recipes are listed for you on my website in your member portal. And also, if you're wanting to know more recipes using Khorasan, you're gonna wanna check out these rolls right here because they're literally the best rolls ever that you will have. And it's made with this beloved Khorasan wheat. As always, I hope that y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye. We are upping the Taco Tuesday at my house with pozole rojo and corn tortillas that we are making from corn that we are nixtamalizing ourselves. Oh yes, we are grinding it up, nixtamalizing. I'm going to show you how. Oh, and I made flan as well because why not? All right, y'all, we're just going to be hopping right into this. How to nixtamalize corn. And you need to nixtamalize your corn if you're going to make corn tortillas, and also the hominy that I use for the pozole rojo. So this is corn that I got from Hacienda. Love them. And links to all these recipes will be in the description box below. So what you're seeing here is nixtamalizing corn is basically corn, dried corn, and it needs to have some sort of this mixture made with calcium lime. This is something you can get in many places. But as you can see, I used the whole bag I got from Hacienda, which is 2.2 pounds of the dried corn. And then to that, I measured out 12 grams or 4 teaspoons of the calcium lime. I added a little bit of water to that calcium lime to make a little bit of a slurry, added it to my dried corn, mixed it up. And then I just have that all in a pot and then added enough water to cover it by about 4 inches. Give it a good stir. And then you take that over to your stovetop like you see me doing here, bring it up to a boil, and then you're going to simmer it. So I like to put a lid on it, help to make it go faster. And then I check on it every 10 minutes. You are going to want to do this the night before because after this process, it then has to sit for anywhere from 12 to 18 hours. So I always do this the night before that I'm kneading it. And so what I'm doing is every 10 minutes or so, I'm checking and stirring this corn, and I'm looking for the skins to be easily coming off the corn. And I also taste a bit of it, seeing where basically I'm wanting it to be cooked to about an al dente. You know, it's kind of like the boiled peanut type texture if you're from the South and know all about boiled peanuts. And whenever it gets to the point where those skins are easily coming off, it's cooked, the corn is cooked to that al dente. I then cover it up with a lid, and then I let it, I take it off the heat completely and let it sit overnight. You know, it can be up to 18 or even 24 hours with it sitting there before we get to the next step. So with my corn that I have here, this actually took me about 35 or 40 minutes to get it to where it was ready to go. So it will vary on the type of corn that you have. But in the meantime, while waiting for this, hey y'all, my name is Felicia. Welcome to Grains and Grit if you're new, or welcome back if you've been here before. And as I stated, I'm going to be teaching y'all all about nixtamalizing this corn. So when this gets to a good point, I set it aside, put a lid on, set it aside, and I'm going to see y'all tomorrow. Okay, so this is my beautiful corn that has been sitting overnight. You can see it's quite slimy, but the skins come off well and it's al dente cooked. So now we got to rinse it. So we're going to pour it in the colander here. Don't know if mine, I think mine is big enough to do it all. And then according to the masa book, we rinse to about 50% of this. In previous videos, I would rinse and rinse and rinse until like all of it was off. So I'm not going to do that today. That will save me work. I am a fan of less work. So let's start rinsing. All right. All right, and that is looking and feeling pretty good. I have to say, this is so much easier than the typical dent corn that I use, but this is where, you know, I'm not feeling the sliminess. And yeah, that's been done very, very well. Now you can see my sink is clogged. So I do have one of these things here. So you can see, like, you know, it is catching the skins and all of that. So let's drain this a bit more here. And then we got to do the next batch. So long as you cooked it right, you got it to the nixtamal the night before, those skins come off so easily. Now from here, you can choose to snap off these little tips here, but no way am I doing that because that will take half my life. So that just means it'll be a bit speckled, and that's okay. All right, so let's do the rest of it. Okay, so I'm here with my beautiful nixtamal. Now let's talk about what you can do from here. From here, according to my masa cookbook, is from here you can actually freeze this. So that way you already have pozole ready to go, or you can place in the fridge. Now, if you're wanting this in the fridge, they say it'll last up to about 1 week. Freezing, it can last up to a year. So that way you can do like a big batch, put it in your freezer, and then you have it ready to go whenever you're wanting to dump in the recipes. Now, with this is before cooking. So to make pozole, we still have to cook this corn, which they state can take anywhere from like 3 to 6 hours. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that going because again, the pozole that you buy in the store, the hominy you buy in the store, that's already cooked. So that way you can dump it in. But we haven't cooked this yet. So we gotta cook this. So I'm gonna be measuring this out to the amount of hominy I need for my pozole that we'll be doing today. The rest of it I'm wanting to make into tortillas. So we're gonna be doing that. And I have to assemble my Victoria grinder to grind this up into masa harina. So they sell at Hacienda the Victoria grinder. I do have the Wonder Junior Deluxe hand mill, which states that it can do masa harina. And that's what I showed y'all the last time I did a video on nixtamal. And I have to say, like, it doesn't work. I don't know why. It might be my error. I don't know. I have tried so many different ways, and it's just so much faster where I've thrown it into my food processor, you know, to do it. It's a bit coarser, but it works. So yeah, so we're going to try this one out because especially it's a lot cheaper than that Wonder Junior Deluxe grain mill, but I have to assemble it. We're going to try this to grind up for the masa, but the pozole, we just need to cook on stovetop like you would any sort of like beans, things like that. And they have a recipe here in their masa book. So let me see. They just state, yep, you fill a pot with enough water, cover it with about 2 inches of water, bring to a boil, and then lower to a simmer, medium-high heat. And then you add your nixtamal. And you cook until softened to your desired texture, anywhere from 2 to 6 hours. And then we throw it into our pozole, which we will be doing in a bit. So according to my recipe for pozole rojo, or red pozole, I need 3 cans or 15 to 15 and a half ounces, 425 to 239 grams of white hominy drained and rinsed. Okay, so let me measure that out. So basically what that means is it comes out to about 6 cups of this. And if I don't have enough to make tortillas, that's fine. I'm just gonna grab some masa harina that I already have and use that. So let me measure this out and get a bowl. Okay, so that was about half of what I need. I went ahead and put it in a pot. We're going to cover this up, get to a boil, and then just start cooking this. You can cook this in chicken stock if you want. I'm just going to do it in water because it's going to be thrown into a soup later. All right, so we now have that going. Now let's assemble this bad boy. See what we can do. Okay, so once again, this is the Victoria hand grind mill. I went ahead and got it from Hacienda, and it is considerably cheaper than my Wonder Junior Deluxe. Now, a few things about this is only for wet grains, and I'll mention that later. But if you see me looking at the box and see me struggle with this is not difficult to put together. I just accidentally threw away the instructions, like the genius that I am. So I'm kind of going by purely visual with the box, but it was easy to put together. This is solid cast iron. It feels really amazing. I do recommend this. It did so well grinding this up, as you will see in just a bit. But yeah, so it was a little bit of a struggle to put it together solely because I just didn't have the directions. But even without the directions, you know, it was simple enough. I could figure it out. To say this thing is solid. Yeah, that's feeling good. Okay, let's try this. See if it's easier than the Wonder Mill. All right, my corn is bubbly. We're gonna bring that down. let's see how it goes. So I'm adding in just a little bit here. Oh, wow, that comes through so easily. Okay, let me see it here. Yeah, that's feeling good. It's still a little coarse. Let's see if we can tighten this up a bit. Okay. Wow, that's working perfectly. Ha, win. And it's not that difficult to do, I will say. Let me see. Yeah, still feeling a little bit gritty here. So let me loosen that up. Okay, let's see if that does better. Okay, it is a bit harder to grind, but yeah, that's starting to feel better. Let's do a little bit more. Okay, so basically I just kept adjusting it until I was getting it to basically as fine as possible. So with masa harina, I do want it as fine as I can, and it does get a little bit more difficult to grind the finer it goes, but still not bad. And it just did so much better than the Wonder Junior Deluxe. So just know that this is only for wet grains. You can probably use it for nut butter, grinding up coffee, but this is not for dry grains. But for this masa, for wetter stuff, I definitely recommend this. I really do like this grain mill. Okay, it is time for the tortillas to be making these. Now again, I am not sure. I've not made it with this corn yet, with this mill yet, so I'm not sure how fine it is. So I may be turning these into tostadas, where we just fry up the tortillas if they're not as flexible, things like that, but we will see. But in the meantime, just know that whenever you are preparing your masa dough, you want to go ahead and be preheating your comal or skillet or griddle or whatever it is that you're going to be cooking these tortillas on. You want it on high because you want it very, very hot. So that can be going while you're mixing this up. So I have my masa dough from earlier, and it has gotten, a little dried, but it still is able to like kind of come together and stuff. But this is too dry to make tortillas, and we need to knead it just a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to add it to my mixer here. And I'm going to watch it. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of water. And then let's start kneading this. And I'm wanting to get it a good consistency that I'm used to seeing with masa harina dough. Okay, so basically what you see right now is where it's quite crumbly. Okay, it's not sticking together. We're basically going to be kneading it a bit. That helps. And then adding enough water where it's going to be able to stick together to make those tortillas. Okay, let's check it here. All right, yeah, it's feeling good. It is feeling a bit wet, but that actually feels pretty good. So I want to examine this masa dough. You can see it's got this texture to it, and this is because I did not take the tips off of the corn. So if this bugs you, then by all means, feel free to take the time on every individual kernel to get the tip off. I don't care. So I'm okay with this. But otherwise, you're wanting it to where it is coming together. It's feeling good, kind of like a Play-Doh in a way. And you can see, I mean, it's staying, if I mush it, it's going to stay together. So it is moist. That's what we're going for. But do know that if you've made masa harina with the instant stuff, you did not nixtamal it yourself, this does not feel as soft as that stuff, probably because it is able to be milled a lot finer than what I'm able to do. So we're now going to see how this does with tortillas. Now, they say in Hacienda that you may not be able to get a puff doing it this way and milling it by hand, but we're going to see if I'm able to get a puff. If I can't, it's okay. We're still looking for soft, pliable tortillas. And again, if it just doesn't quite work out as what I'm wanting, then I'm going to fry these babies up into tostadas, and they're going to be perfect for frying up. Now, when it comes to making tortillas, you need to have a bit of assembly line set up ready to go. So we have our masa, we have our basket with a towel, that we use to cover their tortillas as soon as they're done, because whenever the tortillas are cooked, you put them in here and you want them covered so they can be steaming a bit, and that's what softens them further. And then, of course, we have our tortilla press. This one I got from Hacienda. And then this I'm super excited about because it's new. This is the Kamal that Hacienda sells, but it's made by Made In, which is a fantastic company. I have been dying to get my hands on their cookware. So this is my first piece, and I'm uber excited about it. I seasoned it per the direction. So we're going to see how it works here. I'm used to using my cast iron griddle, so those work just fine. Or if you have a nonstick skillet, you know, that can work. So let's get these going. Okay, so make sure that you have the plastic here. I would not use the, grocery bags per se, or sorry, Ziploc bags, because they're a bit thicker, but you can if you want to. But bottom line, we have the plastic here, and then we're just going to press. And this is an excellent press. I find that I only really need to press once, but these I may press twice because my husband does like them very thin. So it's really personal preference. If you like them thicker, that's fine. Oh, but look at the texture. Look at all of that beautiful texture. Okay, so I take the top off. I'm going to do this. I then carefully remove the bottom, and then that is pretty hot, and we're going to put that baby down. And then we get the next one going. And on each side, I will say this is where it all depends on your stovetop, your heat, the pan you're using. Every time I have moved, I've had to relearn how to do tortillas because it changes with every oven. Whenever I finally replace this horrible electric oven with gas, I'll have to relearn again. Okay, so that's looking good. It's curling up here. So we want to go ahead and flip. All right, and we're watching it. So you're just going to start to see it cook roughly about 20 to 30 seconds on each side. And you're just going to know, like, it kind of starts to shrink up a bit on the side. Kind of looks like it's drying on the sides. It's just cooking. Okay. I say, I love this. I love this skillet. This is great. Oh, come on. Okay, and I think that's good. We're going to flip it over. And now is where, look at that. It is puffing. It is puffing a little bit. Oh, look at me. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so a way if it's not puffing, kind of if you press down on the edges, and then that really helps it to start puffing up. Now, it's not puffing up as much as my other tortillas, but y'all, that is a good puff. We're going to go ahead and take that, set that aside. And now let's do the next one. Now, my tortilla baskets, I do have a lid, and that's easier than like folding the towels back down, so I'm just putting that on. Okay, so let's do this one. All right, there. So again, you're going to kind of notice. Now, you'll know you won't be able to flip this if it's not cooked on one side because it'll just stick and fall apart. So that's a good indication the first time you put it down, if it's cooked well enough, because you're able to actually move it. Okay, and I'm starting to see, again, you can't see this on camera, but you will notice like these edges are starting to come up, and that is my indication that this is ready to flip, and I was able to get my spatula under there. Now, when this becomes seasoned more, I'll be able to actually flip it by hand, but not doing that right now because I'm trying to teach y'all. Okay, so you kind of can't see, but it's puffed up just a little bit. Let's see if we can help it here. So it's very difficult to get it, but it did puff up a little bit. Now with the tortillas I make from the already made masa harina, I can always get those to puff up very well. So the fact that these are puffing up a little bit, I am pleased. I am pleased because again, I'm doing this by hand. I'm not doing it by those machines like you get, you know, like they're doing for the actual dried masa harina. And so I'm pretty pleased. And you may have to adjust your heat as you go if you notice that, you know, it's starting to burn a little bit before it's ready to flip, then that means you need to turn the heat down. So if it's burning before it's cooking, heat goes down. And especially with these electric ovens, I have found that I usually do have to adjust the temperature a bit. All right, it's coming up. Flip. And again, roughly anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds on each side. And you're just going to get a feel for it So this side, I notice it's starting to come up just ever so slightly. So that's whenever I flip it, kind of do this. Let's see if we can get that puff. All right, I'm gonna adjust my heat down just a little bit. Now this is why you want to steam, because right now this feels kind of hard, not kind of hard, but not as soft as a tortilla should be. So that's why we steam them. So they go in the tortilla basket, covered, and they're gonna get nice and soft doing that. What gives it that puff is steam getting trapped in here on the inside, and that's what gives it puff. And usually what helps give it that puff is very, very thin tortillas and and fine flour that you have. So if you're not able to mill as fine, you may not get the puff, but that's okay. It is still going to be a good tortilla. So don't be discouraged. Again, even me, I find that I can get it to puff way more whenever I am using just regular masa harina, not what I have nixtamalized myself. And again, I do have a 10% off coupon code for y'all that is just good for the month of August. So you can get your masa harina, your if you want your corn to nixtamalize yourself. So great time to buy. All right, there we go with that one. That one's a little bit bigger. So here we are with our tortillas. They are done. Now to serve, these are tortilla baskets. If you don't have this, no problem. Bowl, towel. Very simple. You just like to keep them covered. These keep them warm and they soften them. So to serve, I like to take them out and be careful because they are hot, and quickly flip them, because then that means your oldest ones are now on top, which means they will be the softest, and put them back. And now let's, all right, so this is a beautiful little tortilla. Now let's see if we can do this trick here. Oh, not quite as tight. There we go. And the ability to do that means you've got a good tortilla. So that is really good. Now, if you wanted to turn these into tostados or tortilla chips, you either just fry it like this for tostados, or you cut it into quarters and fry it for tortilla chips. Now, that is another video because there are some tips and tricks about that, but that's the gist of it. So now this is ready. These are going to set aside until we are ready to eat and serve up that pozole rojo. It's going to be good. Y'all, you've got to try this recipe if you have not yet. So the great thing about pozole is if making the corn tortillas is intimidating to you, you can still nixtamalize your corn. That's it right there in the pozole. So there's no grinding or anything like that. And you can have this pozole and it's delicious. We just serve it with diced up lettuce, some diced up onion, diced up cilantro. You can see my dog right there is super excited about it. She did not get any. And then we also add the queso fresco on top as well. And then serve it with the tortillas that we made. So I'm telling you, this is to level up your Taco Tuesday and something different than tacos. This is authentic Mexican food. My family loved it. I'll link it for y'all in the description box below. And then for dessert tonight, we actually had flan, which is one of those desserts, I have to say, that seems harder than it is, but this turned out great as well. And if you want to learn more about Masienda, then be sure to check out this video here. I did a full review of their corn, their masa harina. I absolutely love them. But hopefully you enjoy these meals. Let me know in the comments below if you make them. And as always, I will see y'all next week. Y'all have a great day. If you're a lover of Mexican food, or specifically Tex-Mex, you're definitely going to want to watch this video, because in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make soft and delicious flour tortillas using 100% freshly milled wheat. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia. On this channel, we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. So in this video, as I stated, I'm going to be showing you how I make my own flour tortillas that took me forever to actually figure out. But with these flour tortillas, we're using 100% freshly milled wheat, and they come out soft. You can fold them over, they don't break, and they are super, super good. This recipe is actually March recipe for our Make Bread 365 challenge, where we're challenging ourselves to no longer buy bread from the store. And all through this year of 2023, each month we have a different recipe for y'all that you can follow along. And of course, with Grains and Grit, all of our recipes will have nothing but 100% fresh and milled grains. So if you haven't heard about this challenge, then be sure to check it out. For all the details, just go to grainsandgrit.com/makebread365. And that's also where I keep the recipes for the year as well. For flour tortillas, it actually is not that difficult of a recipe, and no fancy mixers or anything like that are needed. It's very easy to do by hand. So let's get started. So first off, we need to mill our wheat berries. I like to use a soft white wheat berry to get a soft flour tortilla. You're just going to mill 2 cups of soft white wheat berries into a fine flour as normal that you usually do for a bread. You just need a fine flour here. And then to a bowl, we're going to add 2.5 cups of the freshly milled soft white wheat flour. And to that, we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and then 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And then here's just a pastry cutter that I use to just mix all of this in together. And then we're going to add 1/3 cup of lard. You can use shortening here, but I prefer not to use shortening. I definitely prefer to use lard. Let's have the real deal here, people. And then just like we do with biscuits and other recipes, we're going to cut in the lard until it resembles like this coarse structure that you see here. So it's just kind of looks like a really coarse flour. And then we're going to take our 1 cup of hot water, but don't just dump it all in because it could vary day by day. So I just put a little bit of time, and then I like to use my Danish dough hook to start mixing it up. Add more water as needed. Basically, you're just wanting to mix it up until it's all incorporated together and it's pulling off the sides of the bowl like it is here. It is going to look like a rough dough, and that's fine because then we're going to take it out and lightly dust our surface, and then we're going to knead it a bit. So you're probably going to need to put some flour on your hands and then start kneading. I like to use a scraper so I don't have to add more flour until you get a soft dough like this. It's nice and smooth and soft. And then we're going to divide it into our 10 little balls. So this recipe makes about 10 tortillas. Of course, you can make them bigger or smaller, but bottom line is you're wanting, this roughly makes about 10. You can weigh them to make sure that they're exact same size. I do not bother. I eyeball it. And then we just roll them up into smooth balls like you see here. And once we do that, we just are then going to place them on a platter. And then I like to take a little bit of extra lard, rub it over my hands as such, and then kind of pat them over all of the little tortilla balls. And then we need to let it rest. So cover this up with saran wrap. And then I would just like to cover up with an extra towel and let it rest for at least 30 minutes. After it rests, you're going to need a frying pan. This is about a 10-inch. I like to use non-stick, and then a good roller here. And then we're going to, again, lightly dust our surface. And this is where it's just going to take some practice to roll these out by hand to get a good shape. I find when I use a tortilla press, it does not stay rolled out. It likes to shrink back in. So that's why I like to roll it out by hand. So as you can just see here, it just takes a little bit of maneuvering, just kind of going back and forth. Don't let it stick to your rolling pin. So always just add a little bit of flour as needed just to make sure it's not sticking. And then we get it to the size. These are about 8-inch size tortillas. And once it's rolled out to a good size, you can see here that it is nice and thin, and it's not really going to be tearing. If you are experiencing tearing, you can, first of all, just fix it like this if it's a little tear. Otherwise, you may need to let your balls rest a bit longer. And here we have a frying pan that's preheated pretty hot. I have it on generally my hottest setting, And this is about maybe 15-20 seconds. You're going to start seeing these wonderful little bubbles to start to rise, and that's what you want to see. And once I see several bubbles, I then flip it over. It's looking great on the other side. Wait about another 15-20 seconds, and then this looks great, and then I remove it and put it into a basically a towel lined bowl. So let's do this again in sped up mode. So here I am. So as one is cooking, you can see that I'm rolling out another tortilla, and this really doesn't take too much time, especially once you get the hang of it. But you want it to bubble up like that, really nice, and you know that it's time to flip it. You're generally going to just kind of figure this out. But as you can see, these are a bit darker spots than I typically like. And so when I see them where they're a bit darker, I do turn down my heat just a little bit. And this is an adjustment that you may have to do. But here they are, all in a bowl. And as you can see, they're nice and warm. Well, you can't see that they're warm, but they're nice and warm, but they're soft and they fold over very easily. You want to keep them like this to keep them warm. And as you can see, they're not breaking apart when I roll them together, and they're absolutely delicious. And to serve with a meal, just make sure that you keep them covered like this to keep them nice and hot. And that's it, y'all. I would have tortillas to show you now, except I did make them for supper and my family completely devoured them in about 0.5 seconds. So no more flour tortillas to show you right now, but these are super, super good. And like I said, pretty easy. The main thing that you need to work on is rolling them out where they actually look pretty, but ultimately what matters is that they taste really good. As always, just remember there is a printable recipe for you guys in the description box below. All my recipes are on my website, grainsandgrit.com/recipes. And hopefully y'all are joining us for the Make Bread 365 challenge. Again, details on my website for that as well. Hopefully y'all enjoy these wonderful, delicious flour tortillas. Do remember, if you're looking for corn tortillas, I have already done videos on that as well, and I'll link those in the description box. Hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye. If I was to describe the South in 3 different foods, I would say it really comes down to fried chicken, biscuits, and grits. Well, I'm not showing you all 3 today. I'm actually going to be showing y'all how to make truly delicious, slap your mama, stone grind grits all at home. Plus, I'm going to be trying out a brand new recipe that I've never tried before using those grits. And I'm telling y'all, it's gonna be good. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, I teach you all about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. Teach you how to be milling your wheat and grains and why whole grains are important, how to be baking bread and using these grains in your house, and more. All right, so I recently came out with my very first cookbook, link in the description box below. And in my cookbook, I did actually have a recipe where I teach you how to make your own stone grind grits at home. However, since this is published, I've kind of updated and tweaked my technique. So this is an updated video showing y'all that, but the full recipe definitely is in here, and I'll link that down below for y'all. Stone grind grits are so much better than store-bought, and with the right grain mill, you can actually do it quite easily at home. It is a little bit labor of love, but it is worth it. And so I'm going to be showing y'all how to be making grits today. But on top of that, I'm actually going to be trying out for the very first time, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to actually do it, but I'm actually going to be making shrimp and grits, which is a very traditional Southern recipe. Now, with that being said, there are many different type of shrimp and grit recipes out there on the internet. And it basically boils down to basically South Carolina shrimp and grits or Cajun shrimp and grits. Well, I know from researching this that shrimp and grits originated in South Carolina. And so no offense to my Cajun friends out there, but I just wanted to go with more of the original type recipe. And so the recipe that I will be following is more of an old-fashioned Charleston, South Carolina shrimp and grits recipe. And I'll be walking y'all through that at the end and I will link the recipe that I use down below and telling you things that I learned about it along the way because I did tweak it just a little bit. But y'all, it was so good. Like, I nailed it the first time and I was so happy about it. But the grits are so crucial, especially because in Charleston, in South Carolina, they definitely swear by that shrimp and grits have to be made with stone grind grits. And again, those of us who are milling at home, we have the ability with the right grain mill to do it at home. Now, to all my Hebrew Roots friends out there, I love you, but you may just want to skip over the shrimp part of this video and just focus on the grits. But good news is that grits are a very versatile type recipe, which I'll be showing you in this video. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so to make your own stone grind grits, you are of course going to need a grain mill. Now, here's the thing with the grain mills that is very, very important. If you have an Impact grain mill, like the Nutri-Mill Classic or the Wonder Mill or the Nutri-Mill Impact grain mill, you're not going to be able to make this recipe with that because it's just going to mill the corn way too fine. You're going to have corn flour. You need something that's going to be a coarser grind to get grits. So I actually have my Nutri-Mill Harvest, aka Miss Nancy. She is my stone grind mill. So this will work in the Nutri-Mill Harvest, a Como grain mill, the mock mill, any type of stone grind mill that you have, and you need it on a coarser setting. And unfortunately, that's not just a setting I can tell you to be at. You're going to have to just learn your grain mill and figure out where the best setting is for that. But I will be showing y'all up close the coarseness of the grains that we are going for with our corn. If you have a powerful blender like the Vitamix or the Blendtec, you can also do that in here. Just be very careful because it can go from a coarse grain to a fine flour like that. So you're going to want to watch it. You may be able to do this in a good coffee grinder, but I'm not sure because corn is a bit larger of a grain than your typical wheat. So I'm not sure about that. So once you have it figured out how you're going to get a coarse grind, you then need your corn. Now, the corn that I like to use for grits is a dent corn, which this corn here I got from Azure Standard. I will link that down below. It's an organic, non-GMO dent corn. You don't want to necessarily use flint corn. Flint corn is a bit harder of a corn and may not grind as easily. So dent corn is good, but obviously I do recommend an organic, non-GMO one for obvious reasons. Now we're going to be doing something fun today because some of my sons actually grabbed this dent corn, planted it, and grew their own corn, dried it, and I'm going to be using that today as well to make these grits. I know some people ask about popcorn. I have never used popcorn for grits, and just from a traditional standpoint, popcorn is for popcorn. Dent corn is for grits. So that's just a personal preference, and I've just never tried it with popcorn. I'm not sure if we can get the right consistency or coarseness with a smaller type of corn. And then on top of that, to do this properly, you actually have to sift the corn twice in 2 different types of sifters. This is actually something I learned from one of our Florida cracker farms here in our area of how they used to do it, where they would grow their own corn, dry it, grind it. They would sift it with a larger mesh to get the larger bits out, and that was chicken feed, which is what I do as well. Then they would sift it again, and from that you get the corn flour that you use like for your cornbread, and then the grits, which is going to be smaller than the larger bits, and this will all make sense in a bit. So I will link these down below, the type of sifters that I'm using. All right, so I'm going to move this camera so we can get you a close-up. I'm going to start grinding the corn. In here I can fit roughly about, I believe, 3 to 4 cups of the corn. And for me, that's going to give me, that usually yields me about 2.5 cups of grits. Plus I have some corn flour left over that I then store in my freezer and I use it for cornbread later on. Okay, so here I am with my Nutri-Mill Harvest. Because I have multiple grain mills, I have the flexibility of, I always keep her set to my coarse grind for grits. So it's always ready to go. So this is the corn that my boys grew and dried, and they shucked it themselves. I'm super proud of them. So we're gonna mill that up first, and I'm gonna close up to show you in my hand kind of the coarseness of the grains, because it does matter. Okay, so for me, I turn my grain mill on first, and then I add in the corn. Okay, so we are done. As you can see, I did a huge amount. And that's one thing that I forgot to mention is this is something you can definitely do in advance. And I recommend that you do in advance because it does take time to grind up and sift all of these grits. So any sort of grits, if you do this in advance, or the corn flour, just store it in your freezer. And that way it's ready to go when you're ready to use it. So let me show you basically the coarseness that we're going for. So you'll see here, this is a mixture of fine flour and coarseness of the grits. So as soon as my camera decides to focus here. So you're going for, I mean, it's just easier to say if you've ever seen grits, that's what you're going for, is a gritty type texture. Some of this will be a bit bigger than your typical grits. That's why we sift. But you can see that's basically the coarse grind that we're going for. So it may just take a little bit of practice for you to figure out where you need to be on the setting of your grain mill. But bottom line, if all else fails, go and buy you some stone grind grits and you'll get an idea of the size that you need. So here we go. And now we're gonna start with the sifting. So before we sift, let me show you the two size sifters that I have. This is just your traditional old-fashioned sifter. Pretty sure I picked this up for 25 cents at a yard sale. Kind of to give you a rough idea of the size. You can see they are larger of a screen. This is going to get the larger chunks out compared to our second sifter, which is actually pretty fine. Now these I got from Amazon, and I will link this below, but you can see like how fine that is. And basically you'll know the difference as I'm sifting, because this just gets out the big bits, and the grit size and the corn flour come through. With this size, what we're going for is the grits remain and the corn flour only is what goes through. So this is a very fine type sifter. So in my cookbook, I actually only did this once, but I found that, especially my husband was saying that they were still a bit bigger of grit sizes than he preferred. So that's why I now sift this twice. And I've added a third step that I'll show you later on. So now you have to get an assembly line going to sift these grits. So as you can see, it contains a lot of different bowls. We first start with our coarser sift. So what I like to do is here, I like to do in this size, no more than 2 cups, all depends on what you have. And we just sift here into the first bowl. Okay, and we just sift until we get these large bits here. I then dump the large bits into a bowl. Now I have chickens. This makes excellent chicken feed. If you don't have chickens, I don't know what to tell you. Feel free to throw this out for just bird feed, and you can feed the birds because these are very, very coarse sizes that are too large for grits. And I'll show you the side-by-side comparison. So we now have this, and now we go, this is what we have left, but there is still fine corn flour in here that we do not want because it'll make our grits too gelatinous. And so from here, I pour it in here, and then I just kind of do this by hand. And this is really just where it takes time. And you're just wanting to make sure that you get all, as much as possible, the corn flour out of here. So I just keep kind of working it in. And I have experience, and I go by sight, and basically when you're just finding you're not getting, flour's not coming out anymore, that's usually a good indication that you've got your grits and that flour is all out. Okay, and you can kind of do this, and no corn flour is really coming out. So now I take my grits and I dump them in another bowl, bag, whatever you're wanting to do. So now we have the 3 components: the very coarse corn that comes out, the corn flour that is very fine, and then our actual grit size. So let me especially compare the size of the really coarse stuff and the grits. So this right here, if you've ever bought stone grind grits, seen them in the store, this is the size of those grits. and that is the size that we are wanting. So let's process the rest of this and we will get to actually how to cook these. Okay, so after like a million minutes and my back hurting, I finished. And so roughly here are the ratios that we got. So I milled about 12 cups of dent corn, and that yielded this much of the really, basically what I consider bird feed. So that is probably about 4 cups of that. These are the grits. So to show you again the coarseness difference between them. So that is too coarse for grits compared to that for grits. So too coarse, perfect size with the grits here. That's a perfect size for grits. So I basically got about 4 cups of the really coarse stuff that I sifted out. And then I got about 4.5 cups of grits and 4 cups of corn flour that I use later on. Now, here is what my recipe calls for in my cookbook, where for every 1 cup of grits, you need 3 cups of water. But I have added 1 extra little step here just to perfect this a little bit more. And let me show you what that is. We are going to pause this really quick to talk about today's sponsor, which is actually my Granny Bunch. Yes, y'all, if you didn't know, I actually have a membership group. They are known as my grannies, and I love them so much. And they are actually huge supporters on this channel. They go above and beyond to give me even further support so I can keep making these YouTube videos for free for all of y'all. Now, the beauty of the Granny Bunch is they actually get exclusive recipes on my website that are only provided for them, as well as Zoom hangouts that we do, which is a lot of fun to be able to meet grannies face to face. We also have a private MeWe group where people can post their recipes, ask questions, and bonus for them is they get direct access to me to ask questions. And I always prioritize my grannies whenever they email me or message me on MeWe, because unfortunately I would love to answer everyone in detail, but I simply cannot. And so thank you so much to all of my grannies and for being the sponsor of today's video. And a specific shout out to some of my grannies, Miss Barbara out there, and Monica, and Jenny, and Ellen, and Rhoda. Those are just some of y'all that contribute a lot to the MeWe group. So be sure to check out the Granny Bunch. You just need to go to grainsandgrit.com/thegranny bunch. Link will also be down below. And again, I love my grannies and thanks so much for your support here on Grains and Grit. Okay, so whenever I was perfecting this recipe, my husband said that I still had a little bit of too much kind of grittiness to my grits. I know that sounds ironic, but just trust me. And so what I did is I then added this step. I'm using all 4.5 cups today because making a big recipe. And then what I do is I then cover it up with water. And what you're gonna see is a lot of still these kind of coarser, lack of a better term, kind of this undigestible type stuff that comes up. I believe it's probably from like that whole, the outer part of the corn. If you've ever nixtamalized corn, that probably makes more sense to you. Okay, so I've got it where it's above the grits. I now let that sit for just a little bit. And if you see here, all of this right here, that floats to the top. That's the key. It's these lighter bits that float to the top that even though when I cook them, they still don't, they're still very gritty and they don't taste like I cook them. So what I do is I then let that float to the top and then carefully make sure you have a strainer in your drain. We then just kind of pour all of this off, and the heavy, just pour all of this off, and the heavier grits that I want are kind of staying at the bottom. Okay, so I got that, and as you can see, those grits stayed, only that very light stuff came off, and then I usually like to do it one more time. Now, because these grits are already wet, I adjust the water, where for instead of just doing the, for every 1 cup of the dried grits, I use 3 cups of water when I cook. I now start with 2 cups for every 1 cup of grits. That's because there's already moisture in here. If I was to use the 3 cups, it would be too much. My grits would be far too liquidy. So we start with that because I can always add water while these are cooking. So this is one last time. We still see all that stuff kind of float to the top. Drain it off. Just be careful not to pour out all your grits. And I'm not going for perfection here because you can see there's still going to be some left, but I definitely got, look at all of that that came off. And this really helps the texture of your grits. You can skip this step if you don't care about it. That's fine. Just keep the 1 cup to 3 cup water ratio with the grits. But for these right here, 1 to 2. So I've got about 4.5 cups of grits in here. I'm then going to get 9 cups of water, put this in here, and then we're going to take it over to the stove. So this is why I say to make sure you have one of those strainers in your sink, because that's a lot of stuff that you probably don't want down your drain. All right, so we're here at the stove, and I've gone ahead and turned on the burner on high. Clearly there are things on the burner because I hear it sizzling. But here you're going to really want a whisk. A whisk is very important. So I already put water in here, and I'm just going to whisk this, because if you do not whisk your grits, they're going to be way too lumpy. They're going to stick on the bottom. They're going to burn, all the bad stuff. So I just do that periodically. So with this method, the water's already in. It's going to come to a boil, and I'm going to be whisking pretty consistently. And then when it comes to a boil, we then turn it down to low on a simmer, and then we put a lid over it, still stirring about every 1 to 2 minutes. And it's going to take anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes to cook. But you do want to make sure that you keep stirring up your grits to keep them from sticking to the bottom or lumping together, especially this part, this step right here when it's coming to a boil. And for those first probably 10 or 15 minutes when it's simmering, eventually when you go to stir it, you'll realize, oh, it's staying apart, it's not lumping together, it's not sticking to the bottom, and you can back off on your stirring. Now, if you did this the way that my cookbook states, where you bring the water to a boil first, and then you add your grits, same thing with the whisking, and then when it comes to a boil, turn it down to low and let it simmer until the grits are done. So we're going to be working on this. And even for shrimp and grits, now depending on the recipe, for shrimp and grits, they might tell you to use a chicken stock, maybe some heavy cream, whatever it is. I'm just going to be making it my typical way and then add in things possibly to the grits that the recipe calls for. So this is the way just to cook your grits. And then after this, you can, whenever they're cooked, that's when you add in your cheese, your butter, your salt, whatever your heart desires to add to your grits. And to bust some myths that you Yankees might not understand about grits, and that is that grits are not just for breakfast, okay? Anytime you have a fish fry, there better be grits served. Specifically, there should be cheese grits served. I will die on this hill. That is how you have a fish fry. You have like the crinkle cut fries, the hush puppies, and you gotta have some cheese grits. So it is not just for breakfast, y'all. It's for those fish fries, and frankly, whenever you feel like eating grits, because there's never a wrong time to eat some grits. The other thing about grits is everyone has their own preference. Some people may like them pretty runny, some more thick. Mine is the spot in the middle where they are more of a creamy kind of texture. Where basically whenever you put them on your plate, they're not gonna spread all over the place, but they're also not gonna be like this hard lump like you wonder, did you just put like a potato on your plate or something like that. So I like them where they're still kind of creamy consistency. That's the perfect for me. So while doing this method, I make sure that I always keep some hot water beside it, because when it starts to simmer, I'm checking on it every 1 to 2 minutes, stirring it up and adding more water to get it to the consistency that I like. All right, so we now got it to a pretty good boil. Again, just make sure every time that you stir, that you are feeling the bottom of this pot and making sure no grits are sticking to the bottom of the pot, because that is not good, no bueno. You could burn your grits, and that's definitely not good. And now we just put the lid on. Shout out if you also have mismatching lids in your kitchen with your pots. And then I put it down pretty much to low on my stove. And you just want it to make sure that it's just still simmering, but not like a raging boil. And I'm just going to be checking on it about every 1 or 2 minutes and stirring it. And then I'm thinking this will probably be ready in about 30 minutes or so, kind of depends. Sometimes it's faster for me, sometimes it's not. And again, when I find that it starts getting too thick, I just add a little bit of water to it. So I guess I go ahead and kind of just stir that up already. And I'll catch you back here when these are done. All right, so it's been about 35 minutes. And I will say that is perfect. So you can see how they're kind of just coming off like that. They're not too runny, not too thick. And then from here, you season them however you like. So adding the salt, the pepper, the cheese, those type of things. We are gonna get onto the shrimp and grits. Okay, so just for the record, this recipe that I used, I basically like 1.5 times it for the size of my family. But other than that, everything is pretty similar. So I did start off where we marinated the shrimp. This is just putting in the salt and the lemon juice, and we just tossed to combine and set aside to marinate. Then we needed to slice up the sausage that we have. The recipe calls for andouille sausage. I think this was like a beef type sausage. It's totally fine. Don't stress out about it. And I will say with this recipe, it seems complicated. It's not really complicated, but there is a lot of prep work involved. So as you can see there, I've got one of my kids chopping up the peppers and things that we'll need later on. So helpers are really, really great right now. So we have the sausage, and then I just went ahead and cut the bacon in half for me. And then what we do is we then put the sausage in a pot, and we basically just had that going until they start to brown. We remove that, we leave all the juice in, and then we cook the bacon in there as well. And then of course, you got to leave all of that good bacon grease in there. And then once the bacon is cooked, you just also set that aside. And then you add in your bell peppers, onion, and your garlic to the bacon and sausage drippings. And we stir until the onion is translucent or mostly cooked. And this did take anywhere from about 6 to 8 minutes or so. So whenever these are completely softened, you'll be good to go. And so while that was happening, I just went ahead and chopped up the bacon. So that was ready to go whenever I was needing to throw that in. And so once those vegetables are good, you put back the sausage. I then put in the marinated shrimp that I had as well. And then we just give that a really good stir. And we actually set aside, because now we work on the very crucial part when it comes to shrimp and grits, and that is the roux. And I will say, if you've never made a roux before, it can be a little intimidating, but specifically with this one, you have to know when you cooked your roux enough, because it's not just a roux that you make and then you add in your stock like it's gravy. You want to cook this until it actually darkens. And yes, I use 100% freshly milled wheat whenever I'm making a roux like this. And so I just do a 1-to-1 substitute ratio. And then for this, you do have to just keep whisking together as it's boiling and simmering until it actually darkens. You want kind of a dark brownish type color. And this did, for me, take about 6 to 7 minutes as the recipe states, but you do want to continuously stir so you don't burn it. And once it's good, you then add it to the shrimp and the veggies. You add in your stock. I believe that was the Worcestershire sauce. And then you just bring that up to a boil. I mean, you do have the bacon. I forgot to do that. And now we really just bring this up to a boil. We are simmering it. This is thickening the sauce as well as cooking the shrimp. And you can see here kind of with the sauce, that's what I'm personally going for. And one thing that I forgot to mention is where I like 1.5 times this recipe, I actually quadrupled the roux and the amount of stock that I used, because I had a feeling, and I was correct, that I wanted it more soupy, kind of like you have it, instead of a very, very, very thick sauce. So to serve it up, you just then put your grits in a bowl, and then you just dish up that shrimp and the sauce over it, and then enjoy. And my family loved this recipe. It was so good. All right, y'all, that's it. So unfortunately, I don't have the shrimp and grits here to show you right now because my family devoured it, and they were starving, and it was a little late whenever I was making it, but it was so good. And it was actually even better the next day because those flavors just really melded together. So I highly recommend trying out this recipe. I will have to try a Cajun style one next. And if you have tried out either making stone grind grits yourself or a good shrimp and grit recipe, let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're wanting to see more of recipe videos that I have, I've got a playlist here all for you ready to go, so you can check those out. And as always, I hope y'all have a wonderful day. I'll see you next week. Bye. Is it possible to make the perfect pie crust using 100% freshly milled wheat? And you know what I'm talking about. That pie crust that is delicious and flaky and does not break when you're rolling it out, and perfect for single and double pie crust. Well, I'm here to tell you it is possible. I have finally figured it out, and I'm going to be sharing that with y'all, the recipe I have for the perfect pie crust for all of those holiday pies or anytime you want a pie in this video. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel we talk about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. On this channel I teach you all about milling your own grains, consuming real whole grains, and consuming that daily bread that Jesus told us to pray for every single day. So I'm really excited to finally share this video with y'all because I have done a pie crust video in the past using freshly milled wheat, and it worked, but I could not use it for double pie crust because it was constantly falling apart on me. The only way to have made it work is I could roll it out in the pie pan, which, you know, works great for sweet potato pie, chocolate pie, you know, any of those pies that you need without that second layer. But, you know, it still wasn't perfect. You couldn't quite roll it out, and it was a little frustrating for me. So I didn't really make pies a lot until now, because I have finally done so much research to find out how to make the perfect pie crust using 100% freshly milled wheat. And good news as well is there's different types of fats that you can use for this as well, based on your personal preference. So as always, the printable recipe will be down below, and I'll be sharing with you guys my favorite pecan pie recipe that I made for Thanksgiving this year. It's not my own recipe, but I will have it in the description box below, and you know, I may make it for you in this video as well. Now, do you know that a special pecan pie that is a traditional Florida cracker pecan pie using cane syrup, Florida cane syrup. I actually have had that recipe on my website, but it's locked up in the Granny Bunch. So for those of you who are my grannies and are part of the membership group, the Granny Bunch, be sure to check out that recipe in your member portal. Now, with this recipe using freshly milled wheat, it is not only the recipe, but also the technique that I found that makes a difference. So here's what you're going to need. And there's a few options you have here. First of all, the wheat that we use is soft white wheat. That is just the best. It mills very fine. It's a light flavor, and soft white wheat works out for your baked goods anyway. Next up, in order to make the wheat berries into flour, you do need your grain mill. And then you also, I highly recommend having some sort of mixer that makes it go easier. You can also do this in a food processor if you have it. Those instructions will be in the printable recipe to help you do it in a food processor. And of course, you can also do it by hand as well, but just requires more muscle strength. So besides your wheat berries, your grain mill, you're also going to need 1 3/4 cups of butter. And I like to go ahead and cut it up into little cubes. This equals to about 3.5 sticks of butter. You can also use lard or coconut oil, same amounts. But if you use coconut oil, do not use the ultra virgin coconut oil, because that coconut flavor will come through. So if you're using that, keep that in mind, unless you like a coconut flavor to your pie crust. You also need 1 tablespoon of sugar. I do prefer using cane sugar. 1 tablespoon of an acid. I use apple cider vinegar. You can also use white vinegar. I just prefer to put in apple cider vinegar whenever I can. 2 teaspoons of salt. I do prefer Redmond's. And 1 egg, out of the shell, of course. And then you'll need about 1/2 cup of ice cold water. This will vary depending on how it's working with your dough, but I like to have about 1/2 cup, a little more, and keep it with ice cold. Now, while I'm processing everything, make sure that your ingredients, you want them all to be cold. So that includes keeping the butter in your fridge until you need it. That also includes our flour. So I'm actually going to be milling up our flour. We're going to need about 4 cups of flour, which is about 3 cups of wheat berries that we mill. And all these details will be in the recipe. But whenever you mill flour, it is warm, and I don't want it warm because it's not going to help incorporate those ingredients. So we're going to be milling our flour, and I just place it in a Ziploc bag, a bowl, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to be putting it in our freezer for about 30 minutes or more. If you want to do this on a different day, just keep it in your freezer so it's nice and cold. So we're just going to go ahead and get this wheat berries milled up. This is obviously more than 3 cups. I need flour for something else later than the day. So this is Miss Wanda, my Wonder Mill Impact Mill, fine flour every time. We're just going to put it in a Ziploc bag, put it in the freezer for about 35 minutes. And after 35 minutes, it's nice and cold and exactly what I need it for. So we're going to grab, this is my Bosch Universal Mixer Plus. You're going to want to start with your whisk attachments. And we're first going to add in our flour. This is 4 cups of the soft white wheat flour, and then we're going to add in our sugar and our salt. Give this just a quick mix, and then we're just going to add in whatever fat that you are using. Now, a note about this: if your butter or your fat is frozen, do not use your whisk attachment. Use a food processor or cut it in by hand. Otherwise, you could mess up your whisk. But I just wanted to show you right here. This is after about a minute, and to show you that this is not cut in all the way. You still have these larger chunks. We want smaller chunks, and this is how it is a few minutes later. This is what we're looking for. So they are like pea-shaped type sizes. It's throughout all of the flour, and it's just this really crumbly mixture. And this is what it looks like when your fat has been thoroughly mixed in. You're going for a crumbly mixture. Next, if you're using a mixer, we are switching to our dough hook now, and then we're going to add in our egg and our vinegar mixture in here, and then we're going to mix that in just a little bit. And now we take the lid off, and I like to slowly add in the ice cold water at a time. We're not adding the ice, just the ice cold water. And I'm basically looking for it to where it just starts to kind of come together. You're going to see where it looks more powdery, basically. And then you're going to start seeing, especially on the bottom of this mixture, where it's going to start coming together. Basically, what we're looking for is for you to be able to pick it up and to be able, where it clumps and holds together like you're going to see here. So as you can see, I can pick it up and I can press it, and it's going to hold its shape. It kind of feels like a very soft kind of Play-Doh. I mean, again, it kind of breaks apart. That's why there's a resting time. But it's not crumbly. It's going to hold itself together. And so whenever you get to this, so adjust your liquid, not your flour in this recipe, but whenever it gets to where you need it, we're then going to just cover it up in plastic wrap, and we're going to put it in the fridge to let it rest for 15 minutes. We're going to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor of today's video. This is a new sponsor, 4 Generations Organic Farms. Personally, I love ordering straight from the fields that my wheat berries come from. They are organic farmers, which means that they believe in regenerative farming, and they rotate their crops, and they even give their soil a rest to ensure maximum nutrition. They have actually been on the same family plot since the 1800s in Oklahoma. They, of course, offer many different sizes, ranging from 5-pound burlap sacks all the way up to 5-gallon buckets, which are sealed with oxygen absorbers. They've actually cultivated their own wheat berries. So even though you are buying hard red, hard white wheat berries from them, it's their own strand. So those unique flavors are going to be coming out in your bread. And another cool fact about them, they supply wheat berries to King Arthur flour, which I know is a big one, as well as other major organic flour brands. So good news for us home millers, we can completely cut out the middleman and just buy those wheat berries straight from the farmer themselves and mill it into delicious whole grain bread. So to check out 4 Generations Organic Farms, just go to grainsandgrit.com/4 generations And just enter in grains and grit for the coupon code to receive 10% off your first order. So now it has been 15 minutes. You can keep it longer, but whenever you want to, just pull it out, and we're going to divide it into 4. This is for our 4 pie crust. If you're really particular, just weigh each one to make sure they're exactly the same size. But from here, I then like to just label some Ziploc baggies with the name and the date and put in the pie crust that I'm not going to be using. This is an excellent recipe to make ahead. And I just put them in there and flatten them out so they will all fit in my freezer nice and flat. And here is the dough that we're looking for. So it's a really soft, it is not dry at all, kind of a good soft Play-Doh. You know how like you have brand new Play-Doh? So here's a little hack. We're going to grab some parchment paper, and you're going to get 2 pieces. Now, we're going to stop it right here because this is where Felicia made a mistake. You need to lightly flour your parchment paper and then lightly flour the very top. I did not do that and was regretting it later. As you will see, I went ahead and kept this mistake in because I wanted to show you guys what happens if you make a mistake like I do. So the great thing about this is rolling it out in between the lightly floured parchment paper is it makes it so easy to put into your pie pans, especially if you need a double crust to make that top crust look beautiful. So do know that this is a process. You're just going to be rolling it out. It will kind of curl up on you a little bit, just flatten it back out. So we're just rolling it out. Do you know it is easier if you roll it out into kind of like an oval first and then just start rotating it around until you're getting a good circle. So this will take some arm muscle here. You're just going to have to keep working it. If the dough is way too soft, you need to put it back in your fridge for maybe about 10 minutes to firm it up because it's got a lot of fat in there. We're going for a soft Play-Doh. So we're just going to keep rolling it out. And then I like just to take my pie pan, put it on top to see if it's the right size. As you can see here, I need a little bit bigger. And this is good. I wanted about 1 or 2 inches bigger than my pie pan. And now here's where I realized I made a mistake by not flouring this, because now we just peel away the parchment paper. It works better on the top, but you can see how it kind of wanted to stick. Not the end of the world, but it definitely was harder on the bottom. So I flip my pie pan over and then just flip it right on top. Obviously, if it's full, you can't do this, but this is an easy way to get it in the pan. And then this is definitely where I was regretting not flouring the parchment paper because it was really sticking to it. But stay tuned because even though this was happening, I was able to fix it. Now, if this was a double pie crust, I would have just redone this whole process because as you can see here, it really started tearing, especially in the middle. So I'm just carefully still trying to pull it away. You can, if this is bugging you, just completely scrape it off the parchment paper, lightly flour the parchment paper, and then roll it back out again. But since this is the bottom crust, this is fine. I just took it and then I just kind of used my fingers to fill in the holes to kind of press it out to make it look nicer. But the bottom line is it was at least big enough where it was hanging over my sides. But you can see here, I just very easily fixed it. No biggie. And now we're going around and I'm shaping it into your traditional pie crust look. You can do whatever shape or design that you want to here. So I just like to kind of fold it, pinch it in between my fingers, and then use my fingers to kind of smooth out any rough spots like that to kind of just make it look prettier. I'm still working on this, but I will say this is a very workable pie dough that makes the edges easy to work with and really makes it nice and pretty. So you're just going to keep, working this around. And then after you get it shaped, now you have a finished pie crust. Do with it what thou wilt. So depending on it, you may need to go ahead and bake it before filling it. I don't need to do that for a pecan recipe, but there it is. It looks beautiful. It was easy to work with. It holds my shape. It's not falling apart once I don't completely mess it up by not flouring my parchment paper. But it just makes a beautiful, beautiful crust. And now time to make the crazy easy pecan pie. So I don't really know my brain words today because I messed this up too. This is 2 cups of chopped pecans and I went ahead and added the soft white wheat flour to it. Wasn't supposed to do that, but I'm not throwing out some expensive pecans. So I just kind of mix that up put it in the pie crust, and it actually turned out just fine. So if you make a mistake, don't ever freak out. It happens to the best of us. And here we have the sugar and the eggs. We're just mixing this up all together with the vanilla extract, and then a pinch of salt and 4 tablespoons of milk. This is from my cow, Bluebell. Then the melted butter. We just mix all of that together into our custard. Ideally, I should have added the flour in this step, but again, it's okay, not the end of the world. So we're just going to mix this all up, and then we carefully just pour it over the pecans, the chopped pecans that are in the pie crust. Again, this recipe will be linked down below. And then all that we do is that I like to put my pies on a baking sheet, bake it in a 300-degree oven for about 50 minutes, and voila! Ah, she looks beautiful. And can I just take a moment and say, look at this crust, y'all. Look at the crust. It looks so beautiful. I was so excited the first time I pulled this out because this literally is like a picture perfect pecan pie. This is delicious. I love that it doesn't use corn syrup, which is GMO, and I didn't want to use it. And so here you go. Again, this is my husband's favorite pecan pie. Feel free to still adjust the sugar how you want it, but this is great with ice cream, with Cool Whip. I do recommend letting the pie cool down a bit. Otherwise, it's kind of mushy whenever you slice it. But hopefully y'all enjoy this recipe. Let me know how your pie crust go. This is great for any type of pie. This is a wonderful pie crust for many pies. And as always, I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Go enjoy you some delicious pie, and I'll see you next week. Bye. It's September, which means that it's another bread for a Make Bread 365 challenge. And this time it is ciabatta bread. And if you thought that you could not get big holes, a nice big crumb inside of a bread made from 100% fresh milled wheat, well, I'm about to prove you wrong. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective and more. So if you're new here, I am participating in the Make Bread 365 challenge, which is a challenge set forth by Mackenzie over at Little Farm Folk, where for the year of 2023, we are challenging ourselves to not buy bread from the store. And in doing so, me and several other content creators are providing recipes each month for a specific bread that month so that you can build up your repertoire to keep you from buying bread from the store. So in order to catch up for this year, if you're new, I have all of the previous recipes on my website. Just go to grainsandgrit.com/makebread365 to view all of those recipes and any future ones coming out. But in the meantime, this is September, and the bread for this month is ciabatta. And I have to say, this one kind of I was about to give up on it because what I was looking for is ciabatta is known for a very open crumb, the big holes on the inside of the bread, but it is kind of a bit flatter of a bread. Fun fact, the reason why we have ciabatta is it is an Italian bread, and it was a response to the popularity of the French baguette. And Italian bakers did not like, being one-upped. And so they came out with their own version, which is the ciabatta, which actually means slipper because it actually has kind of that slipper. It looks kind of like a slipper. So it's kind of a roundish rectangular look, a little bit flatter in the middle. But bottom line is we're ultimately going for taste, but it has that open crumb. And I was so excited to finally figure this recipe out where we could obtain it with 100% freshly milled wheat, something that I haven't seen anyone else do. But just know there's no all-purpose flour involved at all. Now, we're going to get into this in the video, show you how it's done. There is a printable recipe as well, so check out the description box below. But do know one thing I did not say is this requires, I do recommend hard white wheat berries. That's what I've experimented with and have had the best success. And you're going to need to mill 3 cups of hard white wheat berries. You may need a little bit more, kind of depends, but you definitely want to start with 3 cups of hard white wheat berries. And then when I say in the recipe, whenever I say flour, that is already milled wheat berries. It is the actual flour. So let's get to it, shall we? First step is we're going to be making a biga. And so we're just going to be taking 1.5 cups of freshly milled wheat. Again, this is hard white wheat. And then we just need a 1/4 teaspoon of instant yeast and then 1 cup of warm water. And this is just the beginning. And so we're going to stir it up here. I just like to do this in a jar. Just make sure you get all of the flour so you can see that especially likes to be at the bottom. So you just need to keep stirring all this up. Again, you can do this in a bowl, no problem, but we just do it here. Stir it all together. It is going to be drier. This is not a very, very wet. It's not like a poolish. I'm not going to get into the technical differences between poolish, biga, so on and so forth. But bottom line is we're going to just mix this together. This is our pre-ferment. And as you can see, it's going to be kind of stiffer, thicker, not runny. This is normal. And we're going to let it sit here for about 6 hours. Just cover it up lightly. And I just leave it out on my counter for about 6 hours, maximum of 24 hours. Any more than that, just put it in the fridge. But we're going to let it sit. And all that this does is it's going to, the longer it sits, strengthens the flavor. And here it is. I like to do this night before, and this is the next day. So this is the next morning when I'm pulling this out. And as you can see, it is risen. It is bubbly. It has these beautiful holes in it, just like you are looking for in your perfect sourdough starter. Similar concept. And now we're getting ready to make our auto lace. And so this is going to be another 2 cups of freshly milled hard white wheat. And then we're just going to add 3/4 cups of warm water. And that's it. And then we're just going to mix this together. You can do this by hand, but it is, of course, easier in a mixer. Now, this is going to be a bit drier looking, but you're just going to mix it here until all of that flour and water has been mixed together. And this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's not very liquidy. It is coming together a little bit, kind of like that sandy type Play-Doh, if you've ever seen that. So similar thing. So it is moist, but it can still kind of crumble a bit, and that is normal. And we're just going to let this sit for about 30 minutes. That is allowing that water to kind of absorb into the flour. And here it is 30 minutes later. We're going to be adding 3 tablespoons of warm water, 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, 1 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and then all of the biga that we have already made. And like I said in the intro, this is where the work is done in the details. And so we're going to take all of this. And again, it's way easier in a mixer. Cover this up. And then we're going to start kneading this on kind of a medium-low setting for just 3 minutes. So on the Bosch, this is a 1. If you're on the Nutrimel Artiste, this would probably be around the 2 or 3 setting. And this is just getting that biga all incorporated into the flour, the yeast, the salt, all of that, getting it really mixed in. You're going to see it at first that like this, it's going to be looking drier. And then later on in a bit, you're going to see where it's going to start looking more moist. So again, this on the lower setting for about 3 minutes. So this is, of course, really sped up, but you can start seeing where this dough is loosening up. And this is where you have the potential of like your instincts are maybe wanting to say, oh, I should be adding more flour. Don't. It is supposed to be looser. It is not supposed to be fully necessarily like pulling away from the bowl like it does in our simple yeast bread loaf recipe. So it is just a different type of dough than you're possibly working with, and you just need to trust the process. Don't be adding any more flour at this point. It is supposed to be loose. It is supposed to be a moist dough. So here we're coming up. We're almost to the very end of the 3 minutes. And as you can see, it's still, kind of attached to the side of the bowl. So I like to just go in at this point and just scrape off anything that's on the sides. And then we're going to do this for another 5 minutes, but we're going to be increasing our speed. So on the Bosch Universal Mixer Plus, I have this at about a 3 speed. On the Nutrimel Artiste, you're probably looking at about 4 to 5 speed. You're going for like a medium to medium high type speed, and we're going to be just letting this go and kneading for 5 minutes. So let's talk about while this is kneading, while we're kind of doing both a kneading and kind of a no knead type bread, because as you'll see later, we do like to go ahead and get this kneading process going, and then so it is going to be needed, but not exactly all the way, because then you're going to be seeing where we're going to have periods of resting time, stretching, folding, laminating. We're kind of using a ton of techniques here when it comes to this bread, because what kneading does is it is strengthening those gluten strands, which is what we want, because we do want a dough that is rising. But yet we have these moments where the dough is sitting and resting. We do the stretch and fold, the laminating later on, as you will see, in order to build up the big holes in the bread. So that's why we're doing a mixture of techniques, because they do different things. So here we are at the end of 5 minutes. And as you can see, this is still a wet dough. It's not what you expect, but it is actually looking good because the dough is stretchy. So like I said, this kneading is getting those gluten strands, which is giving us this stretchiness to the dough, but it is still a very sticky dough, all normal. And now we're just going to take a bowl, and I'm just oiling it here. You can use olive oil. I'm just using peanut oil. And then we're just going to dump out our bread into this oiled bowl. And as you can still see, it is still very stretchy. That's good. And now we're just going to let it rest. And so we're just going to cover this with some saran wrap. Again, I'm just showing you how this dough is looking to kind of just give you a better idea. Very sticky, but yet stretchable. It's not breaking. So let's just cover this up with saran wrap. I like to put a little towel over it to get it a nice little darker setting. And then we're just going to let this rest for 30 minutes. So the 30 minutes is up, and now strength building exercise time with our bread. This is a stretch and fold that if you've looked at YouTube videos, you've seen. So we start at one place, very wet hand, you pull it up and you pull it over. So you pull out and over, turn it a little bit, pull out and pull over, turn it a little bit, a quarter, out and over. And then I just like to take it and kind of do this type of, I've heard it as 10 and 2 motion, where I'm kind of slightly tucking under a little bit while rotating the ball. It's kind of hard to explain, but my hands are going slightly under the dough, tucking it under into, basically, I'm just trying to get a nice ball that's a bit more tight on the top. This is creating a tension that is going to help strengthen this as it rises. And so all we do from here is we just cover it back up. We have that kind of smoother look on the top. So cover it back up, and we're going to let it rest for another 30 minutes. So the 30 minutes is up. As you can see, this has risen a little bit in normal. And now we're just going to do a different method, and this is called lamination. So you're actually going to slightly wet your counter. I don't have a spray bottle, but you can do that. I just use wet hands. And then we're just going to gently take our dough. And as you can see, it's still sticky. You're going to want to make sure you have wet hands. And then we're just going to stretch it out. It should be stretching out just fine into a very large rectangle at this point. If it is not stretching out and if it's breaking like crazy, put it back in the bowl and let it rest a bit longer. But then we're just going to take it, and then we're going to kind of fold it like an envelope. So we're just going to pull it out and then go over about 2/3 of it. And then the other part, go over that part. I mean, kind of hard again. And then we're just going to roll it up. Now, this is not a very tight sleeping bag. It's just a gentle roll. So we're just rolling that up, and then just going to place it back into our oiled bowl. And here it is. So I'm not doing any necessarily shaping, but then we just cover it back up with saran wrap. And then this is going to rest for the longest time, for about an hour, maybe even hour and a half. And this is what it looks like. It should be rising pretty well. And this is the part where now you want to start making sure, especially you're using gentle hands, because right now this dough is going to be, you may see it kind of jiggle a little bit. That means that there's wonderful gas bubbles on the inside that we want to keep. So as you can see here, I've been flouring the top of that ball of dough. This is a large piece of parchment paper. I'm flouring that as well. I am flouring my surface, a lot of flour involved. And then we're going to very gently and carefully take this ball of dough onto the floured surface. And it should just plop out of that bowl. And then once again, more flour on the top. This is still, it's a moist dough, but we're going to carefully kind of start stretching it out to a little bit more of a rectangle. Again, don't mush this down, because there are wonderful gas bubbles on the inside. You can tell by that little jiggle motion that we do not want to pop. And so here we are, we're just being very gentle, and then we're just going to take a very sharp edge and cut it down into basically 2 rectangles. Again, be gentle. And then we're just going to gently transfer this to our parchment paper. And it's when I'm on the parchment paper that I just like to shape it a bit more into that traditional rectangular slipper type shape that ciabatta is known to having. So you may find that you want to put more flour on the parts that was cut so it's not so sticky. So here we have our 2 rectangular balls of dough here, and then I just like to gently shape it just a little bit more into a rectangle, and then we're just going to cover this up and let this rise for 30 minutes. And while this is rising, time to get our oven ready. So I have 2 racks in my oven. I like to actually remove one because I actually cook this more on the bottom third of my oven, and in order to have room for the pan underneath, I just remove that rack. And so we have a rack on the bottom third of the oven. And then when I'm going to add in a container on the bottom, I just use a cast iron pan on the bottom of my oven because that's where we're going to be putting some boiling water. And then on the top, I really want a baking steel. I'm actually currently going to be getting one from Pleasant Hill Grain, which is the sponsor of this video today. And many of these type of materials, the mixers, the grain mills, the baking steels, you can get from Pleasant Hill Grain. And so here, as you can see, this is actually the top of a roasting pan. You can get a disposable roaster, but the point of that is so it'll help keep the steam in. So we preheat this at 500 degrees. We're going to get some water boiling. And this has been, and one thing I like to do is if you have like marble or granite type countertops, you may want to go ahead and have this rest on a cutting board, or this is my pizza peel. You can also buy from Pleasant Hill Grain in order to keep it. Otherwise, those cold countertops can suck the heat out of it. So these have risen for 30 minutes. It's time to go in the oven. So we're going to carefully place this. This would be easier with a baking steel because it's larger, but we're going to carefully place it in. I'm putting a towel down on the glass part of the door to my oven. Going to go ahead and cover this bread up very carefully with the roasting pan. And then we're going to be adding the boiling water into my cast iron at the bottom. This is going to create a wonderful steaming effect. And then we're going to let this bake for I believe about 8 to 10 minutes. And then after 8 to 10 minutes, we're going to be removing whatever you have to cover this. And then we're going to bake for another 15 minutes to get a nice crust. And here it is after 15 minutes. So be very careful pulling this out. I do plan on replacing these nasty oven mitts with some I'm getting from Pleasant Hill Grain. But here they are. These loaves are beautiful. Again, these are not very tall loaves, but it has a crunchy crust to it, and that is achieved by the steaming. So if you do not have a way to do the steaming, don't be surprised if you don't have a super crunchy crust. But I'm going to let these rest for ideally until they're cool, but at least 30 to 40 minutes. I'm impatient. And so I'm going to go ahead. This is resting after about 40 minutes. And we're going to go ahead and slice this open, moment of truth, to see what it looks like on the inside. And here it is. So as you can see, we do have some pretty good holes in here. I actually have done better, but this is not the whole story. So I'm actually going to slice some off here, slather this baby up in some butter, and it is so good. But as you can see on the inside, that is such an open crumb, and even more so, all those beautiful holes, which surprisingly can be obtained with freshly milled wheat. So here's actually the most perfect loaf that I've ever made. This is the batch before this one, and you can see I even got bigger holes, and I think it's because that last resting period after the lamination, it rested for more of an hour and a half. So I think that's why I was able to achieve bigger holes. But this is such a good bread. It is so delicious, and I have so many future recipes with this. But be sure, again, to check out this recipe. It is a printable recipe I will have down below in the description box. And then check out Pleasant Hill Grain for all of your needs for this specialty type baking. So those baking steels, the grain mills, the mixers. I love shopping with Pleasant Hill Grain. They are a wonderful family-owned company, and every dollar that I spend with them, I know is supporting small business. So you can just go to grainsandgrit.com/PHG. And thanks to Pleasant Hill Grain for sponsoring this video. And again, be sure to follow us along for our Make Bread 365 challenge multi-grain bread is coming up for October. And again, just check out my website for all of the details and the past recipes. And as always, y'all have a wonderful day. Bye. Hey y'all, if you're following the Make Bread 365 challenge that we're doing for 2023, it is August, a new month, which means it is time for a new recipe. And this one is brioche bread, and we're doing it with 100% freshly milled wheat, and it's going to rock your thoughts. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. So as I mentioned, I am participating in the Make Bread 365 challenge, which was started by Mackenzie over at Little Farm Folk on Instagram, where we're basically challenging ourselves to not buy bread from the store. I will say that this particular recipe, I would say it's an intermediate to possibly advanced recipe. If you're a newbie to bread baking, and especially if you are a newbie to freshly milled wheat, I might get a little bit more experience with an easier bread under your belt before you try this one. Or you can do what I would probably do if I heard that and completely ignore it and just jump right in and possibly fail and make mistakes, but it's okay because you'll figure it out. So what makes this bread a bit more difficult is it has a ton of butter, as you can see, a ton of eggs. So the dough is it's just different. It's a different dough than a typical yeast bread, but the results are completely worth it. Now, the printable recipe will be on my website. It will be in the description box below to follow or catch up all the recipes that we're doing for Make Bread 365. Just check out grainsandgrit.com/makebread365. Now with this recipe, I am actually doubling the recipe. So the ingredients you see here is not exactly what it's called for in the printable recipe. So do know that what you see me do, what I will be saying is what is in the recipe. But what you see me do is doubling what I'm saying in the recipe, because I apparently like to confuse y'all. So just keep that in mind. Now for the flour that I like to use, I do like to use hard white wheat. That is because this is a yeast bread, so I do want a hard wheat. I like the hard white because it has a milder flavor that goes very well with the other ingredients. So now let's switch this camera around so you can see up close what I'm doing, and let's get started making this bread. So here we are again. I have the Bosch universal mixer that we are using. So we are adding our ½ cup of warm milk, then adding our 2½ teaspoons of our yeast. Then we are adding our 2 teaspoons of honey. And then I just like to add a little bit of flour, not too much, but roughly about ½ cup. I have just mixed that together. Do not overthink this part. And now we're just gonna let it sit, and it's going to get nice and bubbly, just like it does when we're doing our typical yeast bread. So I do like to keep this, wait about 10-15 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes. After we've got this, we're just gonna add in our 5 large eggs plus 1 egg yolk. We're gonna just add that in here. And then we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, our 5 tablespoons of our cane sugar or white sugar, plus our 1½ teaspoons of salt. And then we're gonna add in our flour. Now this is probably the most important part. And if you're gonna go wrong, it will be with the flour. Adding it, there is a huge danger of adding too much flour, which will give you too dense of a bread. The recipe calls for about 4 cups, 4 to 4½ cups. So what you're gonna do first is you're not just gonna dump all this in. You're going to add just 2 cups of flour, and then we're gonna slowly add from there. All right, now let's mix this up and go from there. So as you can see here, basically ingredients, I'm looking to incorporate them in, but it's obviously a shaggy, rough looking dough here. That's what I'm looking for right now, but I'm gonna mix it a little bit more because of the egg in here. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better, because you could see in the last one that the egg, parts of the egg was still not incorporated. So I'm looking basically for everything to be incorporated, but it be shaggy, very, very rough looking. We're actually going to knead this for about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm just going to be doing this on speed 1 with my Bosch. Okay, so it has been 3 minutes, and as you can see, the dough is very, very wet. It is not pulling away from the sides at all. That is fine. Now we need to incorporate our butter, and this is going to take some time. So you're going to want to divide your butter into about 4 portions. Don't overthink it, just 4 portions. And then we're going to slowly add it. So we're going to add 1/4 of our butter. We're then going to knead it for about a minute or 2, all depends on your mixer. Basically, you're looking for the butter to be completely incorporated into the dough. So that's what we're looking for. So add 1/4, go for about 1 or 2 minutes kneading, add another 1/4, another 1 to 2 minutes kneading, add the 3rd 1/4, another 1 to 2 minutes of kneading, and then add the 4th 1/4, another 1 or 2 minutes of kneading. Oh, this is still on speed 1 on my Bosch. One thing you may find if you just did what I did, you may find you need to just stop it periodically to scrape down the sides. That is normal. All right, so I have pretty much all the butter incorporated in there. Now we're gonna add a little bit more flour. And what I'm looking for is I'm gonna be adding, just only add a little bit at a time, maybe 1/4 cup at a time. Because what we're looking for, it's where it's going to just barely start pulling away from the sides. We are not looking for it to be pulling away from the sides as much as it does when we are ready to knead when it comes to a regular yeast bread. This is just barely pulling away. So I'm gonna get this started. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more, and I'm just gonna keep this on a 1 until I start seeing it to where I want it. And do know every time you add flour, wait for it to incorporate before you just start adding some more in. Okay, believe it or not, that's all I want to add for now. I can always decide if I need to add some more later. So you see here, it's starting to come off, but not completely. And now we're going to set this actually on speed 2 for my Bosch. What you're looking for is you're looking for the dough to basically be pretty much lifting off the sides of the bowl. It's incorporated as a nice dough, fairly smooth. And I'll show you here after 9 minutes, I'll check it and see if it's where we want it to be so I can show you what it's like. But as you can see now, it is shaggy, just starting to come off the sides of the bowl. And this is where you will be really tempted that you need more flour. Don't add it yet. You can add it later if need be, but right now, trust the process. So I'm going to set the timer for 9 minutes, and I'll see you back here after that. All right, so here we are after 9 minutes. I already know that this is good, and here's why. So as you can see, as soon as I stop, it is starting to relax back down. That is fine, but it is completely cleaned the sides of the bowl, which is awesome. And more importantly, the dough looks smoother and shiny, and I can grab it and you can see where it just feels like a good dough. It feels like a very buttery dough. It's soft, it's kind of a shiny look to it, and definitely smoother than what it was. From here, you have 3 options. from quickest option to the longest option. So this is perfect for if you need it now or you need it later. So option number one is we take it from here, we shape it into our loaves, and then we let the loaves rise, and then we bake it. Option number two is we take this out, we shape it into a ball, we put it in back in the mixer or another bowl, cover it with saran wrap, let it rise for 1 hour, and shape it into your loaves, let it rise again, and then bake. Or option number 3A is where you can basically do the things in step 2. And option number 2, where you take this out, you shape it into a ball, you let it rise once, you deflate it, you put it in another ball, and then you cover it again with saran wrap and place it in the fridge for 8 hours up to 24 hours. And then that dough you then can take out, shape, let rise into your loaves, and bake. The option number 3B is you can completely skip the first rise, just shape it into a ball, cover it with saran wrap, and put it in your fridge. I'm going to be doing 2 options today. I'm just going to take half of this, because remember I doubled mine. So half of this I'm going to take, go ahead and show you how I shape it, put it in my loaves, bake it so we can have it for the video. The other half I'm going to show you how I shape it for the first rise to put into my fridge. And I do not want to flour my surface, because I want it, trust me, there's enough butter, it ain't sticking. Now ideally, in a perfect world, if I cared enough, I would weigh this, divide it evenly. I do not care about that today. I'm going to eyeball it. So there's one I'm going to set aside. So in essence, I think I need a little bit more here. So basically, if you were following the recipe, this is the amount of dough roughly that you would have. But the first step is if you're wanting to let it rise or you're wanting to stick it in your fridge, we're just going to roll it up into a ball. So no need to really think about it. You just kind of scrunch it up, go underneath, and then you kind of tuck it under. Do not stress about this too much. It's not like we're shaping a loaf. We're just shaping it where it'll rise well. And then you can just put it in your bowl here and let it rise. Or actually, we're going to cover this with plastic wrap. I'm going to go ahead and place this one in the fridge. Now the next ball of dough. Like I said, this is actually going to be able to shape 2 loaves. So there's kind of 2 ways that I like to do this. Now you can take this and you can make these into hamburger buns. You can do various things. If you're looking for a brioche dough, this is the dough. And now do with it as you will. I have 2 different ways that I like to do this. So set one aside. These are my USA pans. And first one I'm going to do it's a faux braid, or also like pull apart rolls. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to divide it into 8 pieces. Again, if you want to be perfect, weigh everything. Now we're going to shape these into just dough balls. So if you're familiar with how rolls work, same concept. I do want them to be tight. Shaping is important. So again, you can see how shiny my hands are. That's how much butter is in this. And we're going to shape it where I'm kind of pulling it down in my hands like this, and where I'm creating that tension on the top. You can also do this on your counter, but it also creates a smoothness to it as well. So you can see it's shaped. It's got a good tension. And then we're going to kind of stagger these in our loaf pan. So let's just continue. And again, this is a USA pan. It's just your standard loaf pan. These will be linked below. Got these loaf pans actually at Pleasant Hill Grain, which they are sponsoring this video today. I love Pleasant Hill Grain, so I'm supporting a small company. They are the cleanest grains that I ever receive. I love them, and I can get my bread pans. You can get your mixers or grain mills, everything like that. So to shop at Pleasant Hill Grain, just go to grainsandgrit.com/PHG, and I'll link it below. And thanks so much, Pleasant Hill Grain, for being a sponsor for Grains and Grit and for supporting all of us here, all of us grainies. They're basically a one-stop shop for all of us, and I love them. So there we go with the loaf. So you can see they're slightly staggered. Don't stress about it. And then I'm going to set this one aside for now. And now I'm going to show you the other cool way of doing this. Same type of loaf pan. Use my little roller. For these, I like to go into a rectangle shape, pull back, and then roll up tight like a sleeping bag. Okay, and then we're going to roll out into a long rope. That's about 14 inches long. And you're going to want to try and get it as even as you can. There we go. So this is about a 9-inch wide pan. You can see it's a bit, you can go a bit longer because you can always tuck in the ends. All right, so there's that one. You can see it's not quite even, but that's okay, and you'll see why in a minute. Okay, and now we're just gonna do a braided loaf. To do just a braid, very simple. You just take your 3 pieces, and then I like to mush the top together like this and go ahead and kind of fold it over a little bit. Okay, and then if you know how to braid, just braid. And I do like it to be, I do watch it though, because if it's too loose, it won't turn out very well. So there's that one, over under. No, hold on, I need to stop talking so I can do this right. So just loose it, and then there we go. Okay. Over under, and then over on top. So I do kind of like, yep, there we go. Got my brain together. So when we get here to the end, I kind of pinch these together and under a bit, just like here. And then here, to even it out, I can kind of just do it like this, because I do need it to fit into my pan. And then we're going to carefully lift it up, place it in. Now, I'm going to place these on top of my oven. I'm going to cover them up just with a tea towel, place them, and start preheating my oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so I have my bread rising here, and then I just like to cover it with a tea towel and go ahead and preheat it. Now with the instant yeast, this will not take much time at all to rise. An eye on it, and I'm wanting it to rise until it's about half an inch or so, or no more than even with the pan. Here we are where it's risen. This has been about 45 minutes for me. My house, it all depends on how warm your house is. It is on top of a warm stove. We had it up to 325 degrees. It is about, yeah, maybe an inch from the pan. So not as high as I do a typical yeast bread loaf recipe, but this is going to be great. We're going to put it in the oven for about 35 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. So it's been 35 minutes, and here they are out of the oven. They look beautiful. I'm just going to let them rest about 5 minutes in the pan, and then I'll pull them out. And here they are out of the pan. So you may not be able to see, but these are not very tall loaves, and that's totally fine. That's what we're going for. But these are absolutely delicious. So these are the ones that are basically pull apart rolls. You can just break these off, as you can see here, and it is, oh, so good. No butter needed. I mean, if you want to, that's really fine. I will not judge, but these are so buttery and good. And then this is the beautiful braided loaf that you can slice up very easily. Do know, as far as storing these, I would store them in the fridge if you're not eating them fresh. We're going to serve this up tonight. I've made some cheese grits and some eggs with the brioche bread, which is going to be amazing. I'm telling you, this is so very good. So again, printable recipe down below. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and post your breads. Tag me, Grains and Grit, and also hashtag MakeBread365 for all of your creations. I'd love to see. And hopefully this was inspiring. Oh, just like perfection. Perfection. Yeah, super good. I'm going to stuff my face now. So as always, hopefully y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see y'all next week. Bye. It's July 2023, which means it is time for a new recipe for our Make Bread 365 challenge. And this month it is baguettes. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia. On this channel, we talk all things real whole grains from a biblical perspective. Now you may be wondering, what in the world where am I? Well, I'm actually out of my shed because I was thinking about this video and it dawned on me that I have not, I never recorded an intro and an outro. So I did not make the recipe in my shed. So rest assured, I'm just filming an intro and outro for you guys just really quick because I've got to get it done and this is real life and just how it is. It is also July in Florida, and as you can see, it is about 1,123.2% humidity, to be exact. You can check my math. So for those of you who do not know, I'm participating in the Make Bread 365 challenge, which is a challenge started by Little Farm Folk, Mackenzie over there on Instagram. It's more of an Instagram challenge where we're challenging ourselves to not have to buy bread from the store for all of 2023. And so every single month, there's a new recipe that me and many other creators, we share with you guys. And each month is a specific bread. So July is baguettes, and good news, you kind of get two recipes in one here because the recipe I use for baguettes is the exact same recipe I use for French bread. Just, change up the shape. Voila. You have French bread and then you have baguettes. So whichever one you want, this recipe will work. I also only use 100% freshly milled wheat. So there are other creators that use store-bought flour. They may be sourdough, whatever the case may be. But here on this channel, all of our recipes are only using 100% freshly milled wheat. So no store-bought flour or anything like that here. So if all this sounds great to you, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Grains and Grit. Hashtag MakeBread365 is the hashtag. So be sure to post all your creations, and also be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Click the like to this video so more people on YouTube see it, and hit the bell icon as well to be notified of future videos. Now, before we get into this recipe, a couple things. First of all, I highly recommend you using hard white wheat. And a little secret, one thing I've discovered is not all hard white wheat act the same with this recipe. Don't ask me why, but Pleasant Hill grain, for some reason, is the best hard white wheat to use for this. Now, of course, I have not used every single person's hard white wheat, but I have used Pleasant Hill grains for a while, and then I switched. Then I had wheat berries from another company. I can't even remember what they were. I just know that they were not Pleasant Hill grain, and the recipe actually did not turn out as well. It still was fine, but not quite like it. So something's going on with the hard white wheat berries with Pleasant Hill grain, that is just working. So no, but anyway, just use hard white wheat berries. You also could possibly use Kamut, but I haven't tried it yet. So do not, so I'm not sure about that. Another thing is I have noticed a huge difference in using the yeast. I do prefer the instant yeast with this recipe than the active dry yeast. If you have active dry yeast, again, you can use it, but I find that it takes much longer to rise and get where I'm wanting it to go. All right, so let's get out of the shed for a bit so we can make this recipe. First off, we're just going to make a sponge. So this is hard white wheat from Pleasant Hill grain. For some reason, this is the best wheat to use. But we are just adding about 2.5 cups of flour, freshly milled in here, as well as 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, and then just 2 cups of warm water. We're going to mix this all together. And once that's all mixed up, we're just going to add in our 1 tablespoon of instant yeast and mix this up to proof for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how cold or hot it is in your house, until it's nice and bubbly. I do prefer to use instant yeast. I have used active yeast before, but it just takes much longer to rise. I just find that it works better with instant yeast. So let this sit for 15 minutes, and then after that, you'll see that it's nice and bubbly. We're then going to add our 1 tablespoon of oil, 2.5 teaspoons of salt. I do also prefer to use olive oil in here. And then I'm going to add just 2 cups of flour, and then we're going to go from there. So I start to mix it together because you don't want to just dump in flour for freshly milled wheat because it's going to change every day when you make this. So when I start to see it pull off the sides of the bowl like this, this is whenever I generally want to start my kneading time. Now I will say, for some reason with this recipe, it can be a little bit. I do like to knead for 9 minutes, but as you will see later on, I did have to come in partially towards the end of the kneading because I found that it was too sticky and I needed to add a little bit more flour. So you do want to monitor this. And whenever I did add in more flour, I started with like a tablespoon, if even that. So you can see that here. I had about 2 minutes left and it just needed just a little bit. It was just too sticky. So again, this is just something you're going to have to watch. And what I do have a printable recipe for y'all below, but this can vary based on the type of wheat that you're using, how much humidity is in the air. For those who've watched my simple yeast bread loaf video, and this is just part of bread baking with freshly milled wheat. But I generally know you're just going to get a better feel for this whenever you do it more. I'm just going for a soft dough. And again, we're just still kneading it. It's still sticking a little bit to the bowl, but I much prefer to go on the side of tacky or slightly too sticky during the kneading process like this, because I just don't want it to be too dense. You add too much flour, it's going to be too dense of a bread. So it's been after 9 minutes. I stop it, and as you can see, it is what I would call tacky. The dough is sticking to my hands just a little bit, as you can see here, but I'm able to pull it apart and it's not breaking off. So it's a little tacky. Remember, we can always add a little flour. We can't take it away. And so this is how I like it. So don't freak out if it's like this. I also never do the window pane thing. I just don't do it. So we're going to get this off my hands, and now we're just going to let it rise. I am totally fine rising it in the bowl here. This is the Nutrimel Artiste that I'm using, not my Bosch. So this is Miss Annie Artiste that I'm using, and we're just gonna let this dough rise for about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour. It all depends. But in the meantime, bonus, I'm going to show you how I make my spaghetti. So while this is rising, I go ahead and start my spaghetti. So this is just some ground beef, grass-fed ground beef. I add some onion powder, some garlic powder. I do not measure, I just eyeball it. And then I do add some salt to the meat, and then I just brown that up. This is a super simple spaghetti, nothing fancy, but my kids love it. And I can make it while I'm making the bread. This is also one of those meat thingies from the Pampered Chef that I love. It breaks it up so well. And then disclosure, I don't have pasta down. So yes, that is store-bought pasta that you see. I know. And then for my tomato sauce, all that I do is it's crushed tomatoes with salt and Italian seasoning. And then I add the ground beef in. Super cheap, super simple. And my kids and my family love this. Okay, so here we are. We're just checking on the dough. It has pretty much doubled. It's kind of hard to tell in this type of bowl. But here I want to talk about the pans. This right here is a baguette pan I got from Pleasant Hill Grain. I will link it below. I also have the French bread pan for this as well. And this recipe, again, can be used for French bread or baguettes. It's just all goes into shaping it. If you don't have one of these pans, you can just get a clean tea towel like this and kind of bunch it up, kind of fold it like this, and you place a loaf there, you place a loaf in the middle. That way they can rise and not touch each other. You do want to make sure that that's floured down to keep everything from sticking. But I do like the pans because it helps get that crispier crust. Now, here is the dough. It is still a little tacky, which again is what I like. But again, do not automatically go to adding more flour. Now here I'm saying if you're doing French bread, just cut it in half. I'm doing these 3 baguettes, so I'm just cutting it into 3 dough balls. But again, I just want to emphasize these scrapers are great because this allows you to scrape off the dough without adding more flour. And then if necessary, you can either just lightly flour your hands or use a little bit of water. Now I do like to lightly flour the surface when it comes to shaping, because as I roll it down, it's going to stick and then the whole shaping does no good. But the shaping is important to this. So I roll it out very similar to my yeast bread loaves, my regular bread loaves, but here we're going to kind of fold this, take a third of it, fold it where it's in the middle, and then we're going to kind of push it down a little bit, and then we fold it over again, kind of close up that crease, and then we just roll it out to the size that I need. Obviously, if you're doing French bread, it's going to be a little bit shorter, but these are long baguettes, and basically once you get a little dough worm over here. Then I just place it into my baguette pan and kind of shape it to where it's fairly even so I don't have a completely wonky loaf. And then we're just going to shape the other ones. So again, when shaping, you're just going to take about a third of the dough, gently pull it out, push it down, fold it over to kind of the middle of the dough, and then kind of seal up the seams there, and then roll it over again, seal up the seams, and then gently be rolling it out. And the ends, I like to taper them off into little tapers, not just a blunt edge. But this part may take a little practice. I have found if I do not do it this way, the inside will not turn out right. The crumb on the inside will not be right. I actually got this method from, I think, one of Peter Reinhardt's cookbooks, where he actually talks about shaping baguettes and bread loaves and all the things. So thank you, Peter Reinhardt, for your wonderful knowledge. And here we are. We're going to cover it with a tea towel. This is one from Michael Gropp, and I love it. And then while they are rising, we need to preheat the oven to 425 degrees. And while everything is rising and we're preheating, we're going to make the garlic butter. So this is just softened 1 stick of butter and almost an entire garlic clove. I add a little bit of Italian seasoning in, and then put it in a pretty bowl. And then I like to top it with just some parsley to make it look a little pretty. But this is absolutely delicious. And here it is. It's about 25-30 minutes later, and it's time to now score the bread. I'm still not great at scoring, but here you go. And then you can either spritz it with water, or I can gently brush it with water, or you can do an egg wash here. Just if you do an egg wash, it will be more brown on top. And then we're just going to place it into our 425 degree oven for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, we're going to turn it down to 375 degrees. Don't open up the oven for another about 15 minutes. And then here I have my beautiful cutting board, and here they are. They look absolutely beautiful. And I like just go ahead and putting it on a cutting board. I'll link this one below. It actually comes with a bread knife, and the crumbs fall down in between those grooves. So this is the perfect one to serve at the table or to allow people to do it themselves, because then you don't have crumbs everywhere. They fall right in. And then I actually like to let this rest for about 10 minutes before cutting it. And here they are. The best way to have these is hot. You can either break it off or slice it, but these turn out well. I know they're not like super perfect shape. I'm still working on it, but the bottom line is that it's soft on the inside. You can see I could have gone a little bit crunchier on the crust, but I'm not too concerned about it for me, because I think my family kind of likes it a bit less crunchy with the baguettes. So that's the bread knife that comes with it here. And again, you can either just have them where they're breaking it off, but for supper, I'm just going to slice them here for everyone. I did have to grab a little tea towel because wowzers, this bread is super hot. So just be careful when slicing it. And then there's our garlic butter. And here is the inside of it. So you can see it's beautiful. It's soft. It's fluffy on the inside with that slight bit of crunch on the outside. And of course, this is how I'm buttering it now. You can open it up, butter it however which way you want. Don't stress. It's delicious. And then here we are with the fake pasta spaghetti and just add some Parmesan cheese on top. My spaghetti sauce usually is not this runny, but I had to add some diced tomatoes and I didn't drain it. So that's my fault. But here it is. This is supper tonight, y'all. And I did all this kind of at the same time. So it took me about a couple hours, but it was delicious with fresh bread for supper. There you have it, y'all. Bada bing, bada boom. This was actually so delicious. I'll be honest, I'm still working on my crust to get it that perfect crunch, but honestly, I am way more concerned about the inside than I am on the outside. And the inside, it's just light and fluffy. I mean, people may be surprised that this is actually a whole grain bread, but that's the beauty with fresh and milled wheat, is that you can still do these recipes with actual whole grain wheat, and it's so different than your whole wheat flour from the grocery store. Printable recipe will be in the description box below. Also, you can check out previous recipes. Just go to grainsandgrit.com/makebread365 on my website. And that's where I have a ticker of all recipes that we've done so far. So you can have those to catch up if you haven't been following along so far. As always, I hope you'll have a wonderful day and happy eating. Sure to serve this with your next Italian meal. It was perfect. And y'all have a wonderful day, and I'm going to get back into the AC because my face it's melting off. Yeah. See ya. Happy June, y'all, if you can even believe it. So today, I'm actually doing all the things, but in between the things, I'm going to be showing y'all how to make English muffins with 100% freshly milled wheat. This is the June bread for our Make Bread 365 challenge. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and once again, I'm tucked away in a little corner of my kitchen because it's a full-blown working kitchen. I'm doing some canning today, or like a lot of canning today, but I need to record this video. I'm squeezing in the English muffin recipe that I'm going to show y'all. And at the end, I may include some bonus video of canning behind the scenes, but we'll see how I feel. So again, this is part of the Make Bread 365 challenge. It's a challenge that was started by Mackenzie over on Instagram with Little Farm Folk. I'll leave all of her information down below. But basically the challenge is each month, me and several other content creators, bloggers, YouTubers are coming out with recipes for one particular bread that month to encourage y'all to not buy bread from the store for the year 2023. So to get more information about this challenge and to follow along, definitely follow me over on Instagram. It's just Grains and Grit over on Instagram. And then I also have the information on my website. If you just go to grainsandgrit.com/makebread365, that is where I'm giving you information about the challenge, as well as the links to the recipes, equipment that I recommend, so on and so forth. Of course, on this channel, we're all about 100% freshly milled wheat. So other people participating in this challenge, they may be doing sourdough, all-purpose flour, a half and half. But for me, all of our recipes, y'all know, is nothing but freshly milled wheat. Let's get on to the recipe. So first things first about this recipe, I'm actually going to be doubling it for my size family. But the printed recipe is just regular amounts that will yield about 12 to 14 English muffins. So just know that what I'm going to be telling you is going to be what's on my printable recipe. But what you see is doubling of the recipe. So first of all, we are going to start with 3/4 cup warm milk. Just warm it up to, just a general warm. And then we need 1/2 cup of warm water. And we're going to combine those, pretty simple. And then we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of sugar. That was the yeast. Oops. Okay, so that's the yeast that I added. Oh, wow, this is what happens when I'm recording and trying to cook. Okay, real life, y'all. My brain is scattered today. Okay, so if you go ahead and add the yeast, that's fine. So this is actually the sugar. So 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then you add 2 1/4 teaspoon of instant yeast. And bottom line, you're just stirring it together. We're just proofing this, y'all. We just need it to proof and get all nice and bubbly. This will be about 5 or 7 minutes. And just make sure you whisk everything together to where it's pretty dissolved. All right, and we're going to let that sit there for about 5 to 7 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to be getting our dry ingredients. This is the Nutrimel Artiste, aka Miss Annie. I have named her Annie. She's my new mixer, and I will be planning on doing a review of this later on, but we're going to be using her today for this recipe. So while the yeast mixture is proofing, just to get it all nice and bubbly, remember this is also a good way to tell if your yeast is bad. If it doesn't bubble, your yeast is bad, throw it out. Okay, but here we are, Miss Annie. We're first going to start with our whisk attachments, and then we're going to be moving to our paddle attachments. If you don't have those, you can use the dough hook. Don't stress. So let's put in our dry ingredients. And bonus points today, I'm actually using a wheat I have not used before on this channel, and we are using Kamut. Now, it's also called Khorasan. Kamut is the trademark name. Khorasan is the general wheat name. So know that. So I have that milled here. I find that Kamut works wonderfully with this recipe. It gives such a smooth dough, which we will see. But if you do not have Kamut / Khorasan, you can use, I would recommend hard white wheat. You can even use a hard red wheat. Just know it's going to be a bit nuttier type of a flavor, not a milder flavor that English muffins have. So I do recommend trying out the Kamut. It is an ancient grain. It definitely is more expensive, harder to get a hold of. Just know on my website, I think the places that have them is Pleasant Hill Grain and Country Life Foods. So I have those on my website. Just go to grainsandgrit.com/buy-grains to be able to get the links for that, because I have a coupon code for Country Life Foods. I don't know if Azure Standard has Kamut. I know years ago they ran out, like 2020, they ran out, and I don't know if it's come back yet. So there you go. Okay, so we're going to be adding 2 3/4 of a cup of Kamut. Basically for this, you want to mill 2 cups of Khorasan or Kamut wheat berries. Mill about 2 cups of that to give you the amount of flour. You will have a little bit left over, but you are going to need a little bit for dusting. Since this is an expensive wheat berry, any left over, I put it in a quart-sized plastic baggie and I stick it in my freezer and I pull that out, whenever I have it, but you're not going to have too much left over. So we're going to be adding 2 3/4 cups of Kamut. You may need a full 3 cups, but we're going to see. Again, this is freshly milled grain. It can vary. So we're going to add this in here. Remember, I am doubling this recipe. And then we're also going to add our salt, 1 teaspoon of salt. I do love my Redmond salt. I have a coupon code for you guys, again, on my website. Now, we're just going to whisk these 2 together, and then we will switch to a different attachment. Now I'm going to be switching these out from the whisk to, I'm actually going to be using the cake paddles. Again, if you do not have these sets, you can just use your dough hook. So here we have our nice bubbly yeast mixture. It's been about 5-7 minutes. And to this, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of melted butter. And then we need 1 large egg. Now, here's the thing with adding egg. If you just melted this butter and it's hot, like I just put in, don't add your eggs straight to it, because you may scramble your eggs, which is not good. And another note, if you were like me and you have your own chickens, I've actually got some new layers, so my eggs are smaller. And when I have small eggs, I actually just use 2 eggs. So what you saw was 3 eggs. Again, I'm doubling the recipe, and that is because 2 of them are small eggs, so that equals 1 large egg, and then to double it, that actually was a larger egg that I had. And we're gonna just combine these, whisk them together to make sure the egg is incorporated, and then we're gonna be adding it into our flour mixture. Here we go, the Nixtamalize. So we have the cake paddles. We're gonna go ahead and put the lid on and start mixing on low while I'm adding the liquid mixture to it. And once I've added all of them in, I'm now going to turn this up to about a medium. Okay, I'm going to pause this. So what I'm looking for is just like bread dough, is because again, with freshly milled wheat, you may need a little bit more flour, a little less. So always go a little bit on the underside. You can always add more. You cannot take less. So as you can see, it's a very doughy mixture. This is going to be a stickier type dough at first. That's why we're using the paddles instead of the dough hook. But again, it kind of doesn't matter. But what I am looking for that is similar to know that I've had enough flour and when to start the kneading time is whenever it's just a little bit starting to pull off the sides of the bowl. We're not wanting it as much as with bread pulling off the sides, kneading, but you do want it a little bit. If it's just really looking like it's not coming together, just add a teeny bit more flour until it looks like it's starting to come together. We are forming a dough, we will see in a minute, but not quite as heavy or stiff as a bread dough. I really wish y'all could feel this, but I'm trying to explain it as best I can. So let's go ahead and get this started. Okay, so as you can see here, it's kind of, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of like splattering onto the sides, and that's generally telling me I need to add just a teensy bit more flour. I'm going to add ever so much. This is maybe like 2 tablespoons. On the Artiste, I have this on the number 2 setting right now. I would probably keep it on the 1 if you're using the Bosch Universal Mixer. It's still not exactly pulling off the sides of the bowl. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more. Okay, so here I added just a little bit more and you can see it's just starting to pull off. Now I want to start the kneading time. And we just need to knead this for about 5 minutes. So I'm actually stopping it. It actually did not take the full 5 minutes because what I'm looking for, and you can see it's like all over the place, but you can see the type of dough. It is sticky, but not quite super, super sticky, like between a sticky and a tackiness. And again, this is also just part of how Kamut is. It is going to just be a bit more sticky. It probably is the same feeling as if I was to do this with einkorn. So now we remove these. And again, this stuff, you can see how it's stretching and pulling, but not like a batter. It's not a batter. It's still a dough, but just a very, very, like a much looser, softer dough. Okay, from here comes the easy part. Now we just need to let it rest. So I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like, and hopefully you get a better picture of the type of dough this is. What we need to do now is we need to go ahead and get a greased bowl. I just use a stainless steel one. A glass one is fine. And we're going to just put the dough in here. Now do know anytime I remove dough from a bosh or an ortiz, I like to remove the drive so dough does not get on it. You can see here, let me put this here. So this is the dough. It's coming off that spatula. So again, it's tacky. It's very tacky. So here we have it. And as you can see, I can actually do a stretch and fold. So if you've done like sourdough, no knead breads before, but this is extremely soft. So that's what the dough should look like. It is tacky. It's getting less so. And I can easily do a stretch and fold it. We'll break a little bit. That's fine. And now we cover this up and we're going to let it rise. Now you have multiple options here. You can let it rise for at least an hour and deal with it. But the thing with this, with English muffins, is I actually prefer to put it in the fridge and let it proof overnight. And that is for flavor. The flavor really enhances the longer it sits. So you can just whip this together up at night and then, bring it out in the morning. So that's what I'm going to do. And then what I do is tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to pull it out. It needs to sit out room temperature for at least an hour before baking it up. So let's put some plastic on this. I'm going to put it in the fridge and I will see you guys tomorrow. And hopefully my kitchen won't be such a disaster zone tomorrow. All right, so here we are the next day, and now we're just going to take our dough and we're going to heavily flour the surface. This is just the Kamut flour that I had milled, and I'm putting quite a bit of flour on here because again, this is quite a sticky dough, and we're just going to dump it out here. It's still going to be sticky, and so I'm actually going to add just a little bit more flour on the top and then start gently kind of working it in with the flour, but also start just spreading it out. I don't like to roll it out because I kind of want to keep the dough light and not like squashed together. And I roll this out to about 1 inch thick. And then we're just gonna cut out like we do biscuits. This is a really cool cutter that Michael Gropp sent me. I'll link it below. And we just cut these out as you can see. And then we're gonna take some cornmeal or corn flour. I mill it myself, a cookie sheet, put a ton on there because we don't want these muffins to stick, these English muffins to stick. And so then we just gently place them onto our dusted cookie sheet. And again, corn flour is used. That's just what traditionally is to use. You can use a corn meal, but bottom line, we just need to get them on there. That's just traditionally used to give you that dusty type look that English muffins have. And once you use up that, we just roll up the dough and then we just do it all over again until we have used up the dough. And then at the very end, with that last little piece, I then roll that up into a basic shape for a mini English muffin. And now we're going to just cover it up with a light tea towel and let these rise for about 30 minutes. And here they are about 30 minutes later. They can rise a little bit more than this. And then we're gonna grab our pan. I do prefer cast iron in this. And you're gonna heat it on a low setting until you just start to feel the heat in the pan like I just did there. And we are dusting it again with cornmeal and then placing those English muffins on there for 5 minutes with a lid. And then don't do what I did here where the pan was way too hot. You're seeing smoke like this. You can see I slightly burned them. So no, y'all, I'm not perfect. That is okay. If you're not sure where your heat should be, just try one of these muffins first. But, you know, they were a little bit burned, but my family still devoured these. They actually were not burned, just a bit more toasty on the top. So whenever you do these, make sure that you brush out the cornmeal before you put another batch in because we don't want it to burn. So we're going to try this again and actually not burn them this time. So again, you cook them with the lid for 5 minutes. You flip them over, and these are looking perfect. Put the lid back on and cook them for about another 5 minutes. And here they are. They look beautiful. They have that perfect crusty top on it. They're the right thickness, and here's a plate of them. It was much bigger. And so I actually did a little treat today. I decided to try eggs Benedict. So I'm cutting open an English muffin. I already had some melted butter, so I'm just putting that on there, and then some poached eggs, which I did for the first time today, and I'm pleased to say they turned out, and hollandaise sauce, which I also did for the first time, and that's what I served for supper. So here they are, some eggs Benedict. My family was not a huge fan of the hollandaise sauce. I just need to try it again. I think I messed it up, but there you go. So again, the printable recipe is in the description box below on my website. Be sure to follow us with the Make Bread 365 challenge. If you make these, post it to Instagram, use the hashtag MakeBread365, tag me in it as well. As always, if y'all have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And I hopefully this was helpful for y'all, and y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see y'all next week. So as promised, here are the canned goods that I did. I got 7 jars of this. Is like a chicken and gravy. So this is chicken that we raised ourselves, but it's basically a meal in a jar. Really excited about that. And I went ahead and canned some sweet potatoes. We did not grow these, unfortunately, but I want to go ahead and get some canned. And then I had leftover chicken stock, so I went ahead and got, I had enough for 6 quart jars to be canned. So there you go. Had a productive day, and you've seen part of my canning supply. Let's make some focaccia bread with 100% freshly milled wheat. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel we talk all about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. So one of the main requests that I get is definitely more recipe videos, and this is going to be one of them. This recipe is actually part of our Make Bread 365 challenge, which is more of a challenge going on Instagram. And for the month of February, the bread is focaccia. And so that's what we're going to be making today. The wonderful thing about focaccia bread is actually not difficult at all to make. You're actually going to be seeing it where I'm not even kneading it. I'm not needing a mixer, nothing like that. So for those of you who don't have the fancy mixers or wanting more of a no-knead bread, this is really great for y'all. And I'm going to be showing y'all how I love focaccia bread the most, but feel free to add your own toppings, your own flavors. This is truly a very versatile recipe. So let's get started. All right, first off, we're going to proof our yeast. So we're going to grab 1.5 cups of warm water, 1 teaspoon of honey or sugar, and then 2¼ teaspoons of instant yeast. And then we're going to stir this all together, and we're going to let it sit here for anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes until it's nice and foamy. Even though I'm using instant yeast and technically don't have to do this, I do prefer to do this because it does give that yeast a bit of an oomph, and I also make sure that the yeast is still good. And while that is proofing, let's talk about our yeast. I prefer a combination of hard white wheat and soft white wheat. So you're going to grab yourself 2 cups of hard white wheat berries and a 1/2 cup of soft white wheat berries, and you're just going to throw both of these into your mill, mix them up to get the amount of flour that we need.
Now we have our yeast that's all nice and foamy. This is looking great. And now let's start mixing the dough together. So this is the flour that I've already milled. I just milled them all together. So grab you a large bowl and then measure out 3 3/4 cups of this flour mixture. And you can see I don't have much flour left over. And then you're going to grab 1½ teaspoons of salt, and then we're going to mix it. This is a Danish dough hook. I'll link it below for you guys. It just makes it easier. And then we're going to add all of our yeast mixture into this as well. And then we just start mixing this up. This is going to be a sticky dough. That is what we're going for. And it's going to be a bit on the stiff side as well. That is normal also. Once we get it all together, we're going to grab 1 tablespoon of olive oil and dump that into the bread. And then I actually like to put it on my hands a little bit and then start mixing this dough a bit further by hand to make sure all of that olive oil is nice and incorporated. And as you can see, the dough does stick together, but it's definitely not a super crazy soft dough yet. So I just like to kind of shape it here into a circle. We're going to put it back into the bowl, and any olive oil I have left over, I kind of take that, rub it on my hands, kind of coat it a little bit as well, just to give it a little bit of extra moisture. And then we're going to leave it in the bowl, cover it with a plastic wrap, and then I like to cover it with a little towel over that as well. And we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes. And here it is after resting 30 minutes. It has risen, as you can see, kind of almost double, but remove the plastic wrap, and now we're going to start with our stretch and fold. And so you're just going to take it from one side, pull it gently, fold over, another side, pull it gently, fold over, another side, pull it up gently and fold over, and then one more time, pull it up gently and fold it over. So you do this 4 times with the stretching. And then we're going to place the plastic wrap back onto the bowl with a towel over it and let it rest another 30 minutes. And we're going to do this multiple times. So I like to keep a sticky note here to keep track of how many times I have done a stretch and fold. 30 minutes is up, and we're going to do our second stretch and fold. So same technique as before. Each time you do this, you should be noticing the dough getting a bit softer. That's what we're going for. It's developing that gluten content, but without actual kneading. So it is taking a bit longer. So plastic wrap back on, towel back on, mark it on your sticky note, and 30 minutes again. So it's been our final 30 minutes, and now we're going to do our final stretch and fold. But instead of letting it rest in the bowl again, you will see that after we do our final stretch and fold here, that we're then going to shape it and put it into our pan to do its final rise to bake. So once we have that, we're going to grab a 9x13 pan. Ideally, you want it to be non-stick. Mine is not. So we're going to add a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Because mine is not a true non-stick pan, I'm actually adding a little bit more than that to coat the sides of the pan. And then you take your dough and you're going to just lather it in to that olive oil. And then we're going to slowly start stretching it out to the shape of the pan. Now, if your dough is breaking at this point, stop what you're doing and cover it up. Wait for about another 10 to 15 minutes to let the dough rest, and then resume this process. But by now it should be soft enough where it's going to stretch out nicely into the 9x13 pan. And then once we get it done here, you can see it again, it's thoroughly coated with olive oil. We're then just going to let it do its final rise, which for me can be anywhere from 45 to 50 minutes. So you do want to make sure that it's basically doubling in size. And you just cover it back up with saran wrap again and a towel and let it rise in a nice warm spot.
Now is an excellent time to answer a question that I receive, and that is, Felicia, where do you get all of your grains? Where's your favorite place to shop for grains? Where can you buy a grain mill, the Bosch Universal Mixer, the Antarctica Mixer, all of these things pertaining to milling your grains? So glad you asked, because my favorite place to shop is definitely Pleasant Hill Grain. And the reason why is not only are they the cleanest grains that I have ever received, but they literally have everything that we need, especially for those who are wanting to get started and just want to shop at one place without giving business to the big box companies like Amazon and Walmart. Pleasant Hill Grain is a family-owned company. Wonderful, wonderful customer service, and everything is shipped to your house. Just go to grainsandgrit.com/PHG. And thank you very much, Pleasant Hill Grain, for being a sponsor to Grains and Grit. You know we love you.
While that's rising, I like to mix up my topping. So we have 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 2 tablespoons of water, 2 cloves of garlic, minced or more if you like, and then half a teaspoon of salt. And then we just mix all this together and set it aside until we need it. Now the dough is risen twice in size, and now to give it that typical dimpled focaccia look. And so we're going to gently use your fingers and make these little dimples in the bread. Do not go all the way down to the bottom of the dough. I find that that flattens it a bit. But once you have your dimples, you're then going to take that topping mixture and pour it all over the top. Try to get it as even as possible. And then I like to add a little bit more salt to this. And on top of the salt, I like to just sprinkle on some rosemary as well. Of course, this can be fresh as well. And now it's time to bake in a 450-degree oven for about 20 to 22 minutes. And here it is. You can tell because the crust is a bit crusty. And then you do immediately want to get it onto a cooling rack. And then as you can see, it is a flat bread, but it is absolutely delicious. And here we are going to slice it up. So I've got it on my little cutting board here. Using a bread knife, it's just very easy to slice off. Of course, you can just cut it as well and enjoy it, but there it is on the inside. This is absolutely delicious, a wonderful garlic bread. Here's a bit close up as well. Ideally, you want to go for more holes, but this is pretty good. There you have it. Easy peasy. Let me know in the comments below what are your favorite toppings and flavors when it comes to focaccia bread. This is an excellent Italian type bread to be served with spaghetti, pasta of your choice, lasagna, whatever it is. It is just something that is just delightful and different than your typical yeast bread loaves. As always, I hope this was helpful. Be sure to shop with Pleasant Hill Grain, grainsandgrit.com/PHG, and follow along with our Make Bread 365 challenge on Instagram. You can find me there at Grains and Grit. I hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
If you have been missing croissants because you have switched over to freshly milled wheat and you want to make croissants with 100% freshly milled wheat to achieve all of those beautiful layers, to make wonderful egg and cheese croissant sandwiches like you see here with your cup of coffee in the morning, well then stay tuned, my friends, because this video is for you. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel we talk all things about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're old, welcome back. So I'm really excited about this video because this is the final recipe for the 2023 Make Bread 365 challenge. So if you've been following along, we made it. And if you did all the recipes, definitely comment below to let me know how the challenge went. And also stay tuned because next week I'm going live to talk about a new challenge that is coming up for 2024. You're not going to want to miss it. So before we get to this recipe, many thanks to Mackenzie from Little Farm Folk who started this challenge at the beginning of the year to begin with, all about not buying bread from the store and challenging ourselves. So if you want to catch up with past recipes, you just need to go to grainsandgrit.com/makebread365 to check out all the great recipes that we have done throughout this year. And this one is croissants, the one that I've kind of been dreading all year because I was so intimidated by it. And while it does seem intimidating, I will say the process is not difficult, but there are a lot of little steps that you need to do, and detail does matter. But yes, you can make delicious croissants with 100% freshly milled wheat, and that's what we're going to do. So do know that the wheat that we have, that I am using in this recipe, is hard white wheat, which is what I recommend. I don't recommend a hard red, mainly because of the flavor. We're wanting a mild flavor. And a hard white, this is a yeast bread, and it just does really well in this recipe. Also, you can grab the recipe. That's a free printable recipe, grainsandgrit.com/croissants. The link is below, or just follow the link on the screen. And the biggest thing with this is I would actually watch this video with the recipe in hand because it's kind of a companion to the recipe. But without further ado, let's get to it. So first of all, this is the Nutrimel Artiste mixer. I add my 4 cups of freshly milled hard white wheat flour. And to that, I add the 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 tablespoon of instant yeast is what I like to use. And then here are 4 tablespoons of butter cut up. And then we're going to give this a good mix. I'm just using the dough hook. And then on a slow speed, as you see here, I slowly start adding in the milk. This is 1.5 cups of cold whole milk. The cold does matter because you don't want to melt that butter. And then we're just going to get this stirred in and really start incorporating it. I like to add half of the milk first. Let that get start mixing together well. And then as you can see here, we slowly start adding the rest of the milk. And while this is going, let us pause here for a minute to talk about why I don't weigh ingredients. People might be asking, why don't I weigh, especially with what you're about to see that happens. I have another video for that. So when I say 4 cups of flour, I do mean the actual flour, 1.5 cups of milk. That's what we add in first. And as you can see, it already started immediately, almost immediately, starting to form a ball of dough, which is good. That's where we want to be. But we are going to be kneading this for 5 minutes. But this is not a start kneading and walk away. So here's what we're looking at. It's kind of like a, it stays together pretty well. But now we're going to do this for a total of 5 minutes. But we are going to be watching this. So I'm actually going to be checking on this as we go about halfway through, because as you see, this is sped up. But as you're about to see, it's actually crazy enough starting to now adhere to the side of the bowl where it was coming off the sides of the bowl. Now it's starting to adhere. And I think that's because the butter softening and things like this. And this is where we start determining if we're going to add some more flour. I'm not adding it just yet. I'm going to be waiting until about halfway through. So here we are about halfway through this 5-minute kneading time. You can see it is really adhering to the sides of the bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding just a little bit of flour at a time. This is only about like 1 tablespoon right now. Let it mix in. And then also to just be sure, I actually stopped it and scraped down the sides to make sure everything is coming together. I still found that it needed a little bit more because I am wanting to watch to see when it does actually start to pull away from the bowl again. So again, this is all sped up, but as you can see here, you can start seeing it to pull off the sides. And I stopped adding flour because it's going to pull together even more for the rest of this kneading time. So that's what you're looking for. So at first, when you add the flour and the milk, it comes together as a ball of dough. When you start that kneading process, it then reverses and starts adhering to the side of the bowl. And then you just start adding in like 1 tablespoon, if even that, of flour at a time until you just start seeing it pull away from the sides of the bowl. And as you can see right at the end of this 5-minute mark, it is now pulling off the sides of the bowl absolutely beautifully into a dough. And this is a nice soft dough. It's kind of like a Play-Doh, not a typical bread dough. It is pulling apart. It is a bit tacky. We're going for tacky, not crazy sticky, and that's okay. Here I'm grabbing one of those really cool pastry mats I got from Pampered Chef, and we're just going to lightly flour this surface. And the first step is easy because we're just going to take this and form it into just a ball of dough. Don't stress out about this. There's a lot of resting time in here. So right now, don't worry if it's not like a super crazy soft dough like you would think. That's okay. So we're going to cover this with plastic wrap. We're going to put on a tray, and then I just like to cover it up with a towel just to be safe. And then in the fridge for 30 minutes. And then after those 30 minutes, we're going to bring it out. And this is where you use a tool that you don't think you would need in the kitchen, a measuring tape. And so, because we do need to measure these out exactly. So we're going to lightly flour the surface here. And then we're going to roll this out. We're going to be rolling it out into a 14 by 10 inch rectangle. The dough is going to be like a Play-Doh. It should still be workable just after 30 minutes in the fridge. So you're going to want to check this periodically with your tape measure. I find that getting the width is easier, and then I work on the length. So you'll figure this out. But the bottom line is you do want a rectangle. It tends to make an oval shape. So as you see here with my hands, I'm kind of working it where I'm getting those more of a crisp edge, more of like more of a corner. Like we want a true rectangle size. This does matter in the future. But again, this one is coming out to a 14 by 10 inch rectangle. Now just cover this up with plastic wrap, and we're going to place this in the fridge for a minimum of 4 hours. 35 minutes before it's done, we're going to want to beat in our butter mixture as we see here. And then we actually have to roll this out into a 7 by 10 inch rectangle. So this is kind of a hack I do. This is one of those self-healing mats I use for quilting. And so I just like to take parchment paper, turn it over, place it on top of this, and then I just draw out a 7 inch by 10 inch rectangle. Makes it very easy. You can use your ruler if you want. And then that way I just have to then flip it over, and I can easily spread out all of this softened butter without me constantly having to actually use a ruler or measuring tape to measure it. So however you want to do this, we do need this butter to measure out to a 7 by 10 inch rectangle. So we're just going to smooth this out, have it pretty much as even as possible. But again, this is where your measurements do matter. You do want to get this right. And then once we get it to our nice little 7 by 10 rectangle, we then are going to place this in the fridge on another baking sheet for 30 minutes. And this will be coming out with our dough in about 30 minutes. You don't want this to be longer than 30 minutes because it may be a little bit hard to roll out, as you will see in a bit. All right, it's been 4 hours since this dough has been resting in the fridge, and now we do the wonderful process of lamination. So you now want to take your butter that's now fairly hardened and place it in the center of this rectangle as you see here, and then we fold over like a third of it over and then the other third of it over. As you can see here, the dough isn't quite matching up for me, so that's okay. We can fix it. So I just start pinching and molding and shaping the dough together to fully cover up this butter, and we're mashing all the seams together, making sure it's all kind of nice and neat. Doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but bottom line is we want to make sure that the butter is covered. And then now we're going to lightly flour our surface, and then we got to roll this bad boy out. Tape measure again. This is now being rolled out to a 10 by 20 inch rectangle. You will be using some muscle for this, but again, make sure that it's exact. It's going to want to oval out again. Just keep those corners. We want a nice looking rectangle here. And again, I find that getting the width first, that 10 inches first, and then working on the 20 inches seems to work easier for me. And then we're going to fold it like an envelope. So 1/3 over and the other third over that. And that is our first lamination. And now we're going to lightly flour it again. We're going to rotate it. And now we're going to do this process again. So now we just need another 10 by 20 inch rectangle. So it just use the same process as before. If it's starting to kind of be like melty and sticky and things, put it back in the fridge for about 30 minutes and then get back to it. But here we are. And then we're going to just fold it over again into thirds. This is our second fold. And now we just cover this up with plastic wrap and put this back in the fridge for 30 minutes. And now it's been 30 minutes rest. And oh, look, we're going to do this process all over again. And so once again, we're just forming another 10 by 20 inch rectangle. The reason for this is what creates all of those amazing, beautiful layers with the butter and the dough, the butter and the dough. This is what does it. This is a lamination process. It is long, but now we're going to put this back in the fridge for 4 hours or up to overnight. All right, it's the next day for me. The dough has risen a bit. This is coming out, and now we're going to take this, and we need another rectangle, but this one is actually an 8 inch by 20 inch rectangle. So just roll it out as before. I did find this time, because it's been in the fridge even longer, that it takes a bit more muscle to do this, and that is completely normal. And now we're going to cut this in half. So I like to measure this at the 4-inch mark on each side, and then just use a pizza cutter and just cut all the way down to get 2 long skinny ones. And then I just do this again for every 5 inches, because now we're needing to measure out 8 4 by 5 inch rectangles. So I just mark them and then just cut them again with a pizza cutter. And then we're just going to take our rectangles and then cut them in half into all of these little triangle shapes. And can we just take a moment to admire this beautiful lamination going on, all of these layers here with the bread and the dough? Awesome. So now we're just going to take these triangles and carefully with a small rolling pin, measure them out to about 8 inches. Now I will say here, this is just going to take some practice, but we like to cut a little slit at the top and roll them up, kind of mush that tip in to kind of keep it down as it rises. Try to form it into a crescent shape. It all depends on how big it is, and then place on a pan. And then now we're going to do all of these triangles. Mine do not look absolutely picture perfect. This is just going to take a lot of practice to get it done, and you'll start figuring it out which points matter. So the top 2 points of those triangles, you want to be as pointy as possible to help you get a length long enough to actually curve into a crescent. This may not make much sense right now, but as you do this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But once we get them all done, ta-da! Here they are. It's going to take forever, it seems like. But now we're just going to cover this up and let them rise. And while they're rising for about an hour or so, resting, we're going to do our egg wash. And then here they are. They have risen quite well, and they'll rise even more in the oven. But you want to rise these for at least an hour while you're preheating your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're going to place them in the oven for 400 degrees, rotating halfway through. And here they are after just 20 minutes. They are beautiful, nicely brown on top. And look at all the layers. Oh, it's such a wonderful feeling when you pull this out of the oven and to see how amazing they look. But these are so good. You just want to let them rest for a little bit. But this is a bread that we can have hot. And here's just another angle, because I just want to admire all the pretty layers that we worked so hard for. And here's on the inside. With it being so hot, you can't really see them, but enjoy, my friends. So there you have it, y'all. I am so excited. This is such a delicious recipe. The only sad thing about it is that since it takes so much time, and it is devoured like that in my family. So if you're wanting to know about freezing instructions, make ahead instructions, those are all in the printable recipe. And then again, just be sure to check out grainsandgrit.com/makebread365 to catch up on past challenges or past recipes for this year if you haven't done them all. And then stay tuned for next week, where I'm going live on Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk to y'all about the next challenge that I am actually doing for 2024. So as always, thank y'all so very much for watching. I hope y'all enjoy this recipe. If you post it to social media, use the hashtag MakeBread365 and also tag me as well. And as always, I will see y'all next week. Bye. Okay, so that's it, y'all. Congratulations if you literally watched this whole thing. Like, you deserve a gold star. But let me know which one of these is your favorite recipe, or the one that you were looking forward to trying next. And also, I'd like to know kind of what is your experience? How long have you been milling grains? I would like to know. Comment below. Now, after a video like this, I'm really not sure which video to recommend to you, so I'm going to allow YouTube to decide. So here's a video up here to watch next that YouTube is suggesting for you, so you can further your milling journey. And as always, I hope that y'all have an excellent and wonderful day. Happy milling, happy baking, and I'll see you next week. Bye.